thought about pre-recording it, but I didn't.
We're doing it live.
Oh, one take Huckabee. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Star Citizen Live. I'm your host, Jared Huckabee. And if you've never seen Star Citizen Live before, well, this is a really interesting one to start on. This is our special edition of More Stable Universe episode with me and Chief Technology Officer Benoit Beauséjour. Benoit, I've been talking too much. Say something.
Hi, everybody.
How you doing, Benoit?
I'm good. I'm good.
So for anyone who doesn't know you, let's start us off, explain who you are and why you're the person that's here talking to us today on this show.
So I'm the Chief Technology Officer, or as the acronym means, Chaos Team Organizer. And so my job is
okay,
to...
Jesus, fuck, finally. So we missed the entire speech, by the way.
Efforts, but also in the development...
I don't know what he said. That's great. YouTube's a piece of shit.
Right, to make sure that engineers know what they have to do, that they have the tools
fucking
to do
hate
it,
streaming to
and
YouTube.
that they have the right priorities.
Long story short, all I heard was monthly patches.
This show is going to go a bit longer than normal. We're going to break it into a couple different sections. We're going to talk about a few different aspects of development. And then for the latter half of the show, we are literally going to bring up Jira's on my screen, and we're going to talk to him about all the most pressing bugs. Well, not all of them, but many of the most pressing bugs, and find out what the heck's going on. But before we get to that, I want to talk about how we used to work, then talk about this big change that's going into effect this year, so on and so forth. So let's start with the old ways. Let's start back at the end of last year with 4.0 and the 4.0 preview. Over the last 2 months, we've seen a lot of opinions online about how that went and why we did things the way that we did. So you tell us, why did we choose, what did we learn from 4.0? 4.0 was in testing for 3 months before it went to preview, and then we left it on for another month and a half. How did this process go?
Well, so during the development of 4.0, there was a lot of new technology coming on, right? So it's a major patch that changes a lot of the fundamentals. Obviously, throughout the year, we've been developing server meshing. We've done tech previews on server meshing. And so getting to the end of that process, basically exiting the tech preview streams, coming back with the 4.0 content, was a major endeavor to synchronize all that, make sure the new content that was produced fit with the technology and that it was working. Even results that we got with the 3.24 release, for example, were completely, obscured by the new content, right? And so at the end of the year, we took a decision to split the two releases, right? So
leave 3.24 up.
Correct.
Put 4.0 in a preview.
Correct. Because as we were getting closer to the end of the year, right, and time's running out, what we knew from the integrations is that the patch was not quite ready because we needed more concurrency.
Finally, everything's fucking settled.
To discover more issues.
What did I miss him just say? Did anyone catch it?
What our PTU concurrency could actually deliver.
Anything important?
And so, but we knew it wasn't ready for a live release because, we want to be fair with our assessment of where the patch was at. We knew there was some egregious issues that we have yet to discover. I'll talk a bit later about the fog of war of crashes. And so we decided to go with the lesser of known
fake gamer
problems, which was leave 3.24 live for players to enjoy it in a stable release, right?
How are you?
But at the same time, give them access to a 4.0 preview. Now, since we had taken the decisions months ago that the 4.0 patch was going to be a full wipe, that gave us the ability to basically preview the patch, but allowing you guys to keep your persistent progress in the preview as we move up to.
It's supposed to be a full wipe.
Live environment. So overall, I think that was a very difficult decision to do this option for us, but I think it was the best for the project because it allowed us to do the .0 initial release, which had a lot of issues even during the preview. A lot of the skeleton crew.
That's good to hear.
Throughout the break to actually document, hotfix some of those issues as well, and help players that got into weird situations, and start the ball rolling for the year with already important fixes to the underlying technology.
So 2 follow-up questions to what you just said. You said that the clock was ticking.
Yeah.
What clock? Did 4.0 have to go out before December? that itself is a decision that was questioned by many people, internally and externally. What is this clock you were talking about?
Well, in this case, it's like our project is different from other game projects in that we need to release the code at some point to be able to move on to bigger projects. And the PTU is a great process for us, but it does have its limits. At some point, we gain nothing from additional PTU builds because things function well at that level of concurrency, and we need way more concurrency to go up. Even when we plan patches, we know at which moment and the PTU will have concurrency, and we try to maximize those. For 4.0, we kind of ran out of gas, of like attention, and so we needed to get this additional hump over the edge to get the technology out, bigger concurrency, and the ability to fix it in order to then plan for the release.
So you said things run well. Not everything was running well,
No.
but it's what we've said before. It's what I said at the beginning of the show. Sometimes you can't find those underlying problems that are causing it to run less than well until you get that concurrency up.
Correct.
So to that end, wouldn't it have made more sense to just take 324 down and force everybody into 4.0 like we've done every other December in the past?
Right, that was our typical decision. Typically, was to just go for it. Right. In this case, I think it shows a change of mentality, which is that we're trying to respect our live environment a bit more, and so the decision was taken to just allow players to keep playing 324 as even a fallback or as their primary play environment if they preferred. While you could jump on the preview experiment and then just see, try the new content out, but then always have your stable experience to go back to.
But realistically,
Sure.
then for the next couple of hours, you're going to get a lot of questions.
I know, sure.
Who in their right mind was going to log into 324 with 4.0 sitting right there? Like who drives up to Disneyland and look with Disneyland right there goes to California Adventure instead? Did we actually? Was anything gained by doing this, really?
Yeah, like overall, throughout the break, right, during the 4.0 preview, there was actually a fairly large contingent of players still playing 324. Now, it might have been because of some of the issues at launch, right? So they fall back on the 324 batch, right? Which was a bit
Which makes sense.
Kind of the safety net that we wanted to provide. But you're right, of course, we were banking on the fact that people would go on the 4.0 preview to give us that concurrency. But at the same time, we want to give them an escape hatch.
Sounds a little bit like we were trying to have our cake and eat it too.
A little bit, but I think previously we would have just gone with the 4.0 live at the end of December, which would have been a major issue, and a lot of players wouldn't have been able to play during the break.
Okay. So we made this decision. What did we gain from it? Over the holidays, over the second half of December and all through January until 401, what did we gain from running these?
Okay, I'm back. Mental reset. Let's go.
We've been able to actually do a lot of live comparisons of the two workloads. Which
Long story short, shit's broke. Monthly patches.
The 4.0 preview workload
to release bug
was bigger
fixes.
than the 324 one, but we were kind of able to compare both.
And now they're just talking about why they split it up.
The ability to fix early some of the most egregious issues that would have been a real complete disaster otherwise, right? That showed up with the concurrency. I'll talk a bit more about those.
I guess the problem is the fact that it was still.
And so what
why is the stream so
is
quiet?
the ability to provide a test environment that was bigger while allowing players to keep an escape hatch and then compare
Hey Doyle,
both builds.
Yo, shit just got fucked at the beginning. YouTube just started. They started streaming to the wrong ones, and then when I tried to reset them, their stream keys got duplicated and just both tried to stream the same one. So I had to start and stop the stream 3 times, which created a bunch of VODs on the YouTube channel. So I don't know how many notifications I've sent people now.
In January, that's about 4 months. That's about 4 months of testing. Did we fix anything?
Oh yeah. We fixed a lot of things.
Here's the thing. I know what the answer is. I'm being a little cheeky with you and everything, but it's hard not to look at the community and look at the sentiment.
Yeah, I mean,
YouTube and Twitch.
That's why they're doing this. That's why they canceled the free fly, which honestly was surprising.
If you took a real cursory first glance, it looked like, what the f were we doing for 4 months?
Sure.
What the f were we doing for 4 months, Benoit?
All right. Well, so September, October, November, December, right? So since September, we started the real Evocati in October, correct? And so
Did you get 3 YouTube
for these 4
notifications?
months, the majority of the development
Or was it Twitch
finishing
notifications?
the features to make sure that they were server meshing compatible. So we still had a server meshing playtest at the beginning of October, right? That was the final one before we actually reintegrated the streams. And so then came some realizations. We were very happy with some of the tests that we've done. We've identified all the issues with our server meshing tests. We knew what we had to do.
3 YouTube ones?
We came
Jesus
back to the
fucking
main
Christ. Because like the thing is, if you click on the old ones, do they actually like bring you somewhere? Or are they just going to go to nothing now and then people are going to see that and not watch the stream? Yeah.
Major issues.
YouTube is so
when
fucked for
we started
streaming.
The PTU at beginning of October, the first PTU was an absolute disaster. All of the metrics that we had captured in 324, and we were like, yeah, these look good, were completely off the charts with the 4.0 content. Same technology, same code base, but completely new content. And so we realized that the size of the levels were different. The way the content was created was a bit different, and that had major implications on the streaming and replication systems. And so if some of you guys were part of the first couple of Evocati builds or large PTUs in October, the network performance was absolutely horrendous because, and I can jump into an anecdote. I do have my notes because we've got a long show to go through, so I'm going to be referring to some of those. But basically, there was a new change in the engine where we tried to optimize some of the way we deal with streaming radius. And streaming radius is
imagine now it'll
bit
show
of a
it.
problem.
So I want to hear what
every
he's saying here.
Right? Or it's basically the radius of objects, and you decide what you're going to load based on this, based on your viewpoint.
Yeah.
Which is a typical issue in games, right? For performance reasons. In Star Citizen, it is a much bigger impact.
Yeah, it's like,
the streaming
what are you
radius
streaming in?
Affect what your client is going to load in, what the hybrid, which is the replication server in the middle, needs to replicate, and what the game server is going to also have to provide, right, and simulate. And so there was an issue resulting from one of the engine optimizations where, now I'm going to say the final solution, not the how we got there. Well, we had to investigate this for several days to find it. But basically, the way we compound and aggregate objects would actually inflate the bounds of things. And so the new locations in Pyro would actually have a radius of several 100,000 kilometers.
So you're just streaming in shit from far away.
Basically,
that's crazy.
The result was every game client in Pyro was basically binding a very large part of the environment. And that created the work on the hybrid service, which needs to replicate this data upwards of 15 to 20 megabits per client across. Megabits. Which is,
wow.
In the case of our messaging, is substantial.
Oh, megabits. Okay,
obviously, in those cases, interaction.
Sorry, I thought it said megabytes.
Up the wazoo. Nothing
it's still a lot.
And so we lost several.
Can you imagine 50 megabytes
there,
per second?
A couple of lessons, which are going to inform some of the changes we'll be doing this year. But so that was the beginning of the 4.0 journey, right? The first build, where we were coming in confident from our tests, first PTU. What's going on, right? And so
it's another thing that couldn't be discovered until scaled up.
Correct. And then, well, in this case, it's a combination of scale and content, right?
With the content scaled up.
Yeah, well, in this case, it's literally scaled up, which caused the streaming problem, right? So that's a quick anecdote. What else we've been doing?
Hey, Octopus.
Starting from there was
it started at noon, so 20 minutes ago. So Jared gave a speech of about 8 minutes, and we've been doing this for about 10 minutes or so.
Called soft cap and 600 player cap, which
it's streaming on Twitch and YouTube. Or if you want, you can hang out with us and we can talk about it. Your call. I understand if you don't want someone talking over it. But long story short,
but also
all you've missed so far is
for the game itself to support
the
amount of players. So I've talked about.
Actually, I'm going to take notes.
There's reports, but the amount of
one. They're going to do monthly patches. Some of it might just be bug fixing without features.
Around stations, right, for you to be able to get out. Queue, things like that.
With 4.0, they had an issue.
That was a good. We've established those numbers.
Issues with 4.0.
And then the team set up to finalize the latest elements identified during the test to launch. So I've talked about
loading areas. It was loading.
So that had to be completed.
So many stuff.
This was a full,
so many things,
solid month of work to keep optimizing the network bind so that we.
And that's all you've missed so far.
Stalls. That was a very large one.
So their server meshing had an
Another piece
issue.
of this was the teleport API. Now I know that sounds, what is this magic, right? In a normal game server, teleporting objects is very simple because the server has all the entities in memory, and you're like, just move there.
It's not there.
API
Interesting.
needs to support
but I'm watching on Twitch, on the Twitch Star Citizen
right?
channel.
So an object that's in Stanton technically can be teleported through the APIs on another shard. Another server in the shard. And so the teleport API had to be kind of finished. There are several systems that use this. For example, common example is if you die and we need to respawn your character, we need to move your player from where he died to where he needs to respawn. And that can be completely anywhere, right? So we don't know what game server will have it. And so
what game server has it, so you have to transfer that
kind of finished
through death and then load in the entities.
4 months for launch. The other one was the territory configuration. So if you followed the development during the last couple months, we went at some point from the typical small shard of like 2 servers and 400 players, and at some point we exploded the size of the shards. That's because our new territory configuration came into play, and that's how we were able to experiment and come to the final level of the shards that we have now, which is basically we have 5 servers on each side of the star system. So each star system has its own space server. We call this space server for now. It's just a cool name because they treat the open space and the jump gates. But then after that, every major planet has its own game server dedicated to its zone.
So that's probably why I was dropping out of Quantum every single time I left a planet's
really open the shards
area.
We were truly now in full server meshing mode. Obviously, a lot of issues came from that, not from the configuration, but from having more servers would have ripple effects on how the entity and the game would actually behave. So we have to touch that. We also identified something that we were not able to finish for 4.0, which was the culling of instance interiors. So, and I'll talk a lot more about hangars later, but basically, when you hear someone in another hangar, that's network instance calling, right? So we'll talk about that in a bit. Now, one of the big fears that we had for 4.0 was that, of course, it's the debut of server meshing. It's a brand new, deployment for the game. It's a lot of technology change, but there's always a subtext that performance is going to get better if we go server meshing, right? And the reality is the initial test showed that it did not. Now, not because of our assumptions were incorrect, but because, as always, when you don't completely drive on the performance, it tends to get worse. And so we mobilized everybody, like the entire company, basically, all the engineers, right? Where we started a series of, I called them Joker card initiatives, right? So several teams during the last push received the Joker card. And what that allows them to do is to cut the red tape. So, for example, the network team had the Joker card. They could request anything from any team and get priority. And that allowed them to really move forward on their changes and their fixes. And so we started a bunch of those Joker card initiatives on performance specifically. And so every single day we would take captures. We would review hundreds and hundreds of captures, identify code parts that needed fixing, and then literally without a big process, right? So we've cut the process down. You talked about JIRAs earlier, right? This part of the process, no JIRA, right? And we just called out, here's a performance hotspot. And then directors from the company, our amazing tech teams and our engineers just jump on those things and go, I know what to do, optimize, next patch, right? And we kept grinding like this.
Why can't I use...
Sure we could deliver above 15 to 20 FPS per server, at least.
Oh, this sucks.
Started. And we want to go even further, but that was kind of our target, was to deliver something where we're no longer dipping under 10 at all, ever, right? And so, for example, the AI team discovered through this process that there was a very large navigation mesh generation that was directly on the main thread that cost us 15 to 20, sometimes milliseconds, which is The frame budget's 33.
Right.
Wow.
And so, but the response from the teams were amazing. They rapidly refactored and optimized really key pieces of code to shave on these things. That made a very big difference. Out of these Joker card initiatives, I'm going to jump into the important ones. Physics is a very big issue for our servers. I've said that before. Not because our physics code is terrible. In fact, it's great. But we demand a lot from it.
It's actually been looking a lot smoother
Look
recently.
into, well, what's going on here? Why is it costing us so much? And so we really profiled on that side quite a bit together as a team. So one of the things to remember here is that our bugs persist, right? If
I don't think anybody's going to forget that
they
our
persist.
bugs persist.
And so, but what I mean by that in this case is, if I spawn an object, if I spawn an object intersecting with this desk, right? In any other game, when the map reloads, these objects are no longer colliding, and
What's going on?
we're good, right? In Star Citizen, those things will stay in complete intersection in the database and in the shard and in its persistence forever, right? And the physics code tries to solve this, right? And that's what's costing us performance in big parts, right? And so we started this Joker card initiative that we call the Physics Expensive Event Resolution. And
Joker card,
it's
Pilatro?
about the physics engine detecting these things, which it already did, but now raising it for resolution, saying, I need a solve for this. And so a ship that intersects with a wall or that spawn in a wall, a weapon that falls through the floor and that's stuck in there, right? Debris has been a big one, right? And so
You said Joker card.
we needed a way to solve this. So what the physics expensive event system does is it raises an event for the game, and the game now receives these objects and it says, debris and player ship. Well, I'm going to do something with the debris. I'll either delete it, stow it, transform it, move it, right? And so as we start doing this, it's actually cleaning up all of these intersections across the shard and basically giving us back this performance step by step. And so one of the very large things that was very egregious in this was actually a bug on the ships where on explosion, some of the components of the ship could stay static in the world.
Yeah, like the
throughout
landing
explosion.
gear and stuff.
Behind the scenes when the ship explodes, we do a whole bunch of things. We replace some meshes with damaged meshes. Some of the elements are physically deformed.
That's standard stuff in game dev.
And we create debris. We literally spawn debris. Now,
Yeah.
if those components stay static and we spawn debris, we're creating intersections, debris straight intersection into these components. And so that was a very big part of the problem. We fixed that bug, but we also added a system to basically raise the issues with the debris so that they could be cleaned up automatically.
Cool. So now if they spawn together, one of them's going to get stowed or put away.
Turrets.
You got to create a hierarchy for that.
As you guys play, you destroy these AA turrets at the key locations, right? And there was a problem with the setup of these AA turrets.
Joker card. What the heck?
When they died, in the same way as a ship when it dies and the components detach, right? The AA turret had an issue in its setup where it would go like this, but overlapping each other. Basically, every time someone killed an AA turret, we add it to the server load forever. And so obviously, now that's being evicted completely from the system.
Somebody in the chat is like, you can destroy the turrets? Sometimes.
So yeah, they might destroy you first, but
I want to jump a little ahead here. Just I don't want to get too far in the weeds. Obviously, all this stuff is super important. I've seen some numbers floating around in some various chats about how many bugs and how many fixes were actually resolved over the course of those 4 months. I asked you to look into the numbers. What were the actual numbers?
So for 4.0, between 3.24.3 and 4.01, the team have fixed 2,900 bugs in total, but that's over 3,300 tasks. So a bug can require a couple of tasks to fix. So in general, that's the number of fixes overall.
I'm going to ask a very candid question because
Go for it.
2,900 bugs is a very impressive number. But
did we fix the right ones?
Did you fix the right ones? Obviously, those ones were all. Many of those obviously are important. We have a tremendous coterie of directors, all studios around the world who are prioritizing.
This is good. They're getting back to the roots of what these things should be, is showing the behind the scenes, being real about the development. And talking about the failures as well. Last year felt very much promotional 4.0. And I wanted them to get back to the roots of what these were supposed to be about.
So without going into each one of those,
this is good. They're answering the hard questions of
why these 2,900 other bugs and not just 2 or 3 of the ones that would change the lives of hundreds of people. Thousands of people.
Well, so
look at the timing on that. I knew he was going to ask a question.
Right. What I can tell you is that most of those issues are filed, they're called out, right, and they're raised up. But the complexity of some of them require a specific handling. So, if like I've read some stuff over the break where we've hotfixed certain issues. Like there was if I remember, a certain exploit that came out for some duping and some people thought it was a beneficial change, even though it was a bug, and and we fixed it. And people are like, well, why did you fix it when you could fix something else, right? It's all about capacity to fix.
Yeah.
So do we have the right person available
this is not showing
for this problem? Some problems require the experts. Our manpower is extremely specialized. And for some of the older systems, it's even worse. I call those the sandworm kind of feature, where basically, I've called them out before, but ATC, terminal.
But the issues last year is it did get a little.
Are 4 of the systems that are always
not.
I'm just going to do a quick change. Never happens.
Never. Like it.
Systems, right? And so.
I want to jump in here.
Yeah.
Uno Mas in Twitch chat is yelling.
It felt like they're just using it as promo. And more extra marketing instead of actual, which it can be, but instead of actual communication with the community. So this feels like much more back to the roots now.
Not everything, Kian is great at this, doesn't know crap about that. Paul is wonderful at this, would be as lost as I would be tackling this other thing. There are a finite number of experts that are available on any one thing. And like we talked the last time you were here, the folks who made ATC aren't here anymore. So ATC has been one of those features that had rotted, and there was always there's this terrible Sophie's choice, and we have a section about how these choices are made here, where it's like, okay, we can take someone like Kian or someone like Paul or whatever and put them on this, but they're going to be on this for 5 months because they've got to start from scratch.
Right.
Whereas they could fix 15 or 20 other issues in that same time.
Right.
And you're like, well, and this constant calculus of, is that one worth the weight of those 20s? And it's not a situation I envy you or anybody else. You said you don't make the prioritization. Right. You're in these conversations along with everybody else. Yes. You mean you don't make them alone. You're not the sole person who gets to decide.
Yes.
And so like this, it's like many things are done in a committee because everybody's got their perspective, everybody's got their priorities, everybody's got their idea of what they think is the most important. Right. I've been in chats where Chris will say this is the most important, and Aaron will say this is the most important, and Jens will say
I think it's a restream from Twitch.
Well, no, this is the most important. And we have the same conversation that the backers have. Just
what do you mean a restream from Twitch?
Is usually what I say. So.
No, this is live.
It's prioritization.
This is live right now. That's why there's 3,500 people watching it.
And having that right resource available, because sometimes the right person for that is also the right person for this, and they've been in this for 3 months.
Right.
And to pull them off of this right now would be devastating to that, because then you get tech debt. And
I'm not gonna lie, I missed what he said. What did he say, Doyle?
We sit there. There are so many times where I've been in meetings or sit in chats and just ground my teeth, because we all know what needs to happen. We all know that thing needs stuff, but there isn't the resource at the moment.
Oh, okay. Never mind. I got the transcript, so I can read it.
At least as frustrating for us as it is for the players. Probably more so for the players, if I'm being completely honest. But
no, but you're right. it's all about having the right people for the right issues
at the right time
and
in the right
historically, you know, if we're
Yeah, but it's also hard. Like, what is priority? I mean, obviously, what the community thinks is going to be a key thing. We're the ones paying for the project, but sometimes we don't know.
What Chris outlined in his letter for the chairman is really the direction we want to go, which is to bring back those experts into helping us fix the things that affect the players day in and day out.
So let's start talking about the letter from the chairman now.
Sure.
So in December, Chris published a letter from the chairman that would set the direction for our entire 2025. I did a big thing at the beginning about this, and when I'm going to ask you for your version of this, I want to read specifically a few words that were from that letter. As we jump into the new year, our primary focus across our Star Citizen teams is clear. Improving playability. Our drive for playability surrounds 3 critical areas: performance, stability, and content. No features in there. We understand that the live environment must be far more reliable and consistent, and we are determined to deliver on this. The sentiment many of you have shared, and one we wholeheartedly agree with, is that if the current game, as it stands today, ran smoothly with fewer obstacles and bugs, it would provide an unparalleled experience. Over the years, we've experimented with different approaches to improve quality of life and tackling tech debt. However, the ongoing challenge has been balancing these efforts alongside
The beard, yeah, he talked about that at the beginning.
Technology. So,
sorry, this is what I actually look like.
In the same pipeline as content, it's led to a bunch of intended ripple effects, creating instability, hindering performance, and impacting overall gameplay. In some cases, new features that are not fully mature have delayed the release of content or caused blockers that impact our progress. This has prompted us to reevaluate our approach to feature and content rollout, focusing on steps that we can take to bring the game to a better state while maintaining steady delivery. And that's the end. That's the last I'll read from this stuff. So
Sure.
I just got done at the top of the show explaining what that means in my words.
Right.
I want to hear what that means in your words.
Oops.
What are we actually doing to put those words into effect this year? What are we actually changing?
Stage 1 is we're committing more resources to fixing issues that affect the live environment, but also that are reported by players. And so in a typical setup, we have to take those resources from features, right? So that means that normally if we're on 50 different features, all these engineers are working on new content to build new components or new features, new UIs.
The problem with bug fixing before is that
this can go on for a while because there's prototyping, there's iteration, there's merging QA, and this can take a while to bring it in. And as Chris is pointing out,
as you're building features, they might not be complete, so fixing them in that moment can be a waste of time sometimes.
To get those resources to jump into what I call these Katamari issues. Like, we're going to look at a couple later, but issues that require, I need a physics expert. I need an audio expert.
They roll and pick up more. Katamari Damacy.
I need a gameplay expert. I need a guy who wrote this system. I need a guy who wrote this system. An issue that just keeps growing until it's solved.
We got to play that, Tim.
To do that, we need to give a Joker card to those issues. And so that's what we're going to do this year, is to slow down on features. We still need to build features, but we're going to pick the ones we can do while still investing in correcting the problems that we know are
Katamari Sushi
forever, or that are newly and very active. And even if they're super complicated to solve and require a refactor, right? So
he said it before. He's calling them Joker cards now.
But it also means.
How you doing, Archaic?
What I put in my notes, because we kind of prepared a list so that I can just organize my thoughts. But increasing bug fixing quotas for teams. So in general, teams have not necessarily a quota to fit, but they have an allotted time for bug fixing. We're going to try to jump that by a lot so that we can actually jump on more bug fixes that matter.
It's hard to talk at the same time because they're actually just saying a lot right now. And I don't want to talk over them. And the stream's quiet for some reason.
There are maybe 15 or 20 or 30 issues that are really affecting players day in and day out that are bugs or defects that must be resolved.
Are you all rested now?
That in a list called the
That's good.
List. So every director has a chance to
doing good. Woke up, started the stream.
Say,
that's my day so far.
This issue, and it needs to be solved, right? And so that list is also going to transform itself into a release criteria. So
hope it was a good productive day for you.
PTU, we're going through these waves, right? You know, the process at which we go to the next wave is always a bit, you know, it looks good. We look at metrics. We look at, you know, disconnects and stability in general,
yeah, I
but
figured.
we don't necessarily look at quality.
If it's a nighttime for you,
because we're in development.
I mean, it's
so
only
always
7
been
o'clock, right?
different for us, but I think that we need
1900
to change this process for us to move away from being an alpha game. We need to start moving away from the word constant development. In order to do that, we need to professionalize our criteria for launch. And that means that director's list needs to go down. It needs to get the solves that it needs. And those become criteria to move forward. Now, we're going to have to make decisions because we cannot fix everything out at the same time. Again,
yeah, YouTube and Twitch chat are not combining anymore because the Restream, I'm not using Restream anymore, and that was a bot for Restream.
Increase the number of engineers. And
also, technically, I'm not allowed to have YouTube
going out and hiring
chat
new people.
show up.
You're talking about, you know, the
up
people
there.
who were working on base building,
technically
people
by
who were
Twitch's
working
terms
on
of service.
crafting, the people who were
People do it
on
anyways, but
resource networks like that. It's
technically
about,
not allowed.
Taking those seniors, those people with the experience, the one that Uno Mas said, the experts, about taking those experts and pulling them off the new feature development, and putting them on the less sexy.
I might be able to make my own bot.
It's an elevator.
That's an example.
That pulls that info and.
All right. So I want to talk about the 3 areas
and transfers
that
it
were
in
covered in the letters to the channel. We'll start with stability.
But that's a lot of work.
I know this is going to sound like a simplistic question, and there are probably lots of Star Citizens. I can see them in the chat right now. JJ Land 614 says no one cares about bug fixing. Is everybody right? Is JJ Land 614 right? Everybody?
Let's see him get shit on in chat here.
Sorry, there was no reason for me to do that. Sure. So lots of people who have followed these shows and they know parts of this. I've seen the people in the chat. I already know this because I watch everything. This is a show for everybody.
Right.
What does working on stability really mean? What is it's?
You just got a shat on.
We've had a lot of platitudes here, and platitudes are necessary. They're helpful to explain things, but translate this into real world shit for me.
Doyle.
I use my one swear. What does working on stability actually translate into as far as action goes?
Well,
when we go back to Jared, I got to ask you something.
Aggressively monitoring what we call internally stability covers like some of the very simple metrics, like do servers crash, right? Or do hybrids crash? Do clients crash? And together, do these cause client disconnects, right? And so all these metrics go into what we call basically stability, but it goes further than that. Those are just basically the indicators, like the big level indicators. What stability is like things like bare bone things, like are you able to successfully connect to the game?
Can you log in?
Correct. Can you do successful interactions?
He's out of water.
Like,
that was so sad.
Press F to join your cockpit and then not it take 35 seconds. Is it consistent and reliable? Meaning, like, is it like this all the time?
Yo, Wraith,
or
what's
is
good?
It there only sometimes, right? So stability is about consistent and reliable experience interactions.
Speaking of, I just started playing Wraith last night in Deadlock.
When we work on stability, we're talking about improving the observability. So teams that, when you guys are playing the game, you have a very immersive experience, and issues that affect you during your gameplay are part of your bubble, right? We need to be able to see those issues from the outside. So from the server side, from the cloud environment side, and so improving observability gives us that, because there are many systems in the game that have not been instrumented to be observed, right? And
so
sometimes
you don't know, you don't have the data on it.
Older systems, I'm not going to name ATC, are going to have like some hiccups that we can't even see, but players report to us, and then we have to investigate, but we need more observability.
But you don't have data on it.
Working on stability is part of that.
They're talking about this current state of the game, how broken it is, and their plans to fix it internally.
Systems, so that they can just repair their
and externally
themselves.
Monthly
so
patches is the key takeaway right now.
The system to make sure it tends towards,
and they're having their teams focus more on bugs over features.
And the observability,
and they have
to play to make sure that it does
the ability to give teams the right to work on bugs if
budgets for error,
player reports get too high.
Budgets for performance. And so that affects everybody in the company. But if we talk purely on stability, it's all about, is the content that we've produced here or the feature we've produced here using too much resources, whether it's CPU,
I always love seeing someone with RL in their name,
bandwidth,
also into Star
storage,
Citizen.
networking.
There's dozens of us.
So reinforcing those budgets.
It's tough. It's playable,
finding the offenders,
but there are
right,
things
that go above these budgets
that stop you
them
from
down,
playing. And it goes back to
solving
some of the
them. So
classics of
stability
like
work.
ATC,
Reducing error
like he just
rates,
mentioned,
obviously,
elevators
part of it.
that they don't have data on,
And
that they can't look at and find these issues.
the challenge,
And we're
with
trying to
working
systemically
stability
fix these
is
issues
that,
now and focus on
especially in
fixing
like
those
the server
issues.
crashes, is that it's a fog of war.
The game is actually in a really good state,
You can
but there are
launch a game,
pure
you're like
blockers.
a version of the game, and there's one crash that's going around. We can identify dedupe crashes, right? So we know what they are. So we're looking into one, and then we're like, oh, if we fix this one, it's going to be
Actually,
very stable.
our Discord actually has a lot of
And
like
when you fix
mix
that one,
of the
that
two.
allows the program to continue.
The Leafs Lounge is
And
basically
more bugs show up. More crashes.
the-
So it's a fog
the
of war. It needs
SCRL
constant attention.
community.
One thing we've done this year to help that is that we have a much more robust hotfix process that, frankly, we use a bit too much, but it does give us the ability to get some fixes out when we see big problems right away.
Most people in there do both.
That fog of war. So that's what working on stability for me is. It's all of these issues together.
Do the same thing for performance.
Sure. Performance is it's a larger one, and so performance touches on both the client, the hybrid, and the server. The hybrid is the replicant that takes care of the networking, and so performance is about obviously frame rate to begin with on the client and on the server. We talked earlier about server optimization. It's about loading times. So making sure that the load times are acceptable in all kinds of areas. Like I'm not just talking about the loading screen. I'm talking about.
I'm probably going to put together a video that summarizes all this later.
Fully initializing a full location, right? That's the.
My calendar might be too busy to do it today, though. That's
memory utilization. So making sure that we use efficient memory, that we don't.
I got to set up the Talladega stream. Maybe I can get it done before then.
Here, the keyword is budgeting, so we need to have way stricter budget. We need to work on that area. And then finally, resource utilization of your machine in general, but also network connections. So latency and bandwidth, connectivity and stability of the connection in general that need to be improved. So that's what working on performance is. So stability is one area, performance is another one.
All right, so who works on these things? Because this isn't, so we're talking about this major change here. We're taking people off of features and putting them on new features and putting them on existing features, existing work. This isn't something that vehicle artists do. They get to keep doing their thing for the most part. This isn't something that somebody who makes a distribution center for the environment team does. This isn't something that somebody who makes a really unfortunate heart-shaped bed for the subscriber program does. I
want that. That's what I'm saying. That was one of the few subscriber flares I actually wanted. Wraith, make sure when you go to the Discord,
who are the people that are actually doing this work. Who's changing to do this stuff?
So
go to make sure to go to roles and click the games that you're interested in.
But it's also
a lot of people forget to do that. I also came in like season 8, 9 and stuck for that. See, hell yeah, let's go.
An online team that takes care of what we
if you want to get in the Discord as well, it should be in the link in the description of the video you're watching there. Archaic.
Watchers of all these metrics, and these guys will call out issues that we need to solve, right? And then they will loop in engineers. And so.
Oh, did you guys see they just announced it? Worlds.
I kind of want to
going to France
on what you just said about like,
Lyon
the guys on the ship team don't have to do performance, right? Which I think that it.
You did it perfect.
Sometimes
a lot of people don't
things are made in the game
don't realize they don't read the instructions and go there.
Right. I can give examples, but like areas of levels that are created with hundreds of entities, right? Instead of using like a bare minimum.
Welcome to the lounge, by the way, Ray.
Group merging certain objects. Need to help reduce the actual effective size of things. So the teams on content are also kind of on the hook for performance, less so on stability, but they're on the hook for performance. And so they're not totally free, but they are less in the line of fire because typically an engineer is needed to identify a problem first, and then it might reach a content team depending on what the issue is.
What's the difference between an engineer and a programmer?
It's basically the same thing almost.
Why do we use both terms?
I don't know. I think it's when you use programmer when you talk about a coder, and you talk about an engineer when he's got an architectural
build a system
approach to it.
Yeah.
I guess, but they're very similar in my mind.
Sounds like full of shit.
Yeah, a little bit. But
There's your second swear.
You're not going to count that one.
where's the jar?
You need a drink. You're talking quite a lot.
Yeah.
All right. So let's put things into motion now.
Yeah.
It's 2025. We've got our mandate. We've got our directive set for us by Chris Roberts. We touched a little bit about prioritization and delegating responsibility. So I want to talk about this. It's no secret that anybody who's watched my stuff for years knows that I like to have the conversation that no other game company would ever dream of having. And there's nobody from another game company that would sit here for 2 hours and answer these kinds of questions. So thank you. I want to talk about delegating responsibility.
Oh!
Let me think about how I want to put this.
Think for the sub,
we have
Storm.
a lot of talented engineers and programmers across all of our studios. But some are juniors and some are seniors who have all their
Those
own
could be
specialties
just because
and
my other
aptitudes.
videos, though. It still pops up even if people sub
How do we decide who works
because
on
my
what?
other YouTube videos.
Because when I look at
Yeah, exactly
if I were
right.
sitting on the outside,
That
right?
land's going to pop off.
If I were sitting on the outside, I would look at some of the decisions that have been made over the last couple of years. Elevators have been a plague forever. A transit system has had a refactor or two in the past and whatnot. Those were all before server meshing, which will now require another. If I were sitting on the outside, I would look at this and wonder, what the hell are they thinking from time to time?
Sure.
Why? So I would like you to talk about how this process is done. I know you said that you're not the one solely responsible, but you can speak to this process and how this responsibility is delegated, not just to what bugs get worked on, but who
Right.
works on this stuff. Talk to me for a bit about that.
Well, so it's an interesting problem, right? Because fundamentally, all these talented programmers and engineers are human beings, right, behind it, and so they
Even Paul?
Human
even
beings.
Paul. I mean, he does have a beast mode,
Yeah.
but he is still a human, and I think that one of the challenges that the teams face regarding this not necessarily prioritization. Let's talk assignment.
That sound he made,
is
that went like in the
there's a
back of
certain
my
level
head.
of ownership. Right? If I wrote a system,
I can't make the sound.
then I own it, right, in a way. And
This
then
is weird, like ticking
further
sound.
iterations or bug fixes on this thing, I
No,
will
we're
be
a
the
horror
best
film.
qualified to do it because I know the code. Anybody else that needs to go in this code is going to have a little ramp up, right? And sometimes we can't pay that ramp
You have to
up,
get used to it,
especially at
yeah.
the pace at which, I keep saying that in our project it's different. Typically, we don't release a game before it's in.
Use AI.
Most games don't run
tell you
a
where
live
everything's
game
broken.
environment in the middle of their development.
Exactly, and that I call it the cost of shipping, is what hurts us the most because now any priority issue for the live patch needs to become absolute, right? But so back to assignment, right? So one programmer writes a system, he owns it, right? So we're going to try to go back to this person when there's bug fixes or items to go to.
They're going to have the least on-ramp time.
Yeah, exactly. But now sometimes it can happen that that's a junior developer. It can happen that it's a senior developer. It really depends, right? Some systems also end up with no owner when there's churn and people leave and there's replacements or people move on. There's a lot of internal movement at CIG where people want to change their specialty and so you want to keep that distribution fair for the people in there. Like, you don't want to assign someone on pure bug fixes for 5 years because they're not going to stay with the company, right? You need to,
That would suck.
balance
Yeah.
this out in terms of the.
And it would take forever.
how
You have one
assign
person
the
trying to
work.
fix everyone else's code.
Again, I'm not talking prioritization, but assignment, right? Typically, we're going to try to pair juniors with seniors to encourage growth so that these juniors can become seniors and then we can depend even more on them, right? And so that's another constraint that sometimes you need to spend time from a senior on a specific issue to help a junior on another issue.
Sometimes you'll have two people on an issue, not because they can make the baby twice as fast, but because that's how you train that junior to become senior. And that's
What
one
a
less
phrase.
person that could be working on something else.
That's right.
Because you need, this is part of their training.
Not because you can make the baby twice as fast.
There's also, so we talked junior, seniors, right? We make it simple, but there's also leadership, right? So lead developers, like, I don't know, most people know this, but the lead developer is not necessarily the best developer of the team.
Name names.
No.
It just means
but the lead's responsibility
they understand
is
delegation.
management, right? It's making sure that the issues move and that our plan of action is sound, that it's vetted, that it's, code reviews, make sure
babies in the
quality is
face.
there, but also just orchestrating the team.
Babies in
So
the
typically a lead
face.
would spend roughly 40% of his time doing management on the team, right? So leadership is also a key element in that. Even if you pair people and you have a million things going together, what is the drumbeat is the leadership, right? And so you need to have all those combinations to be able to have a healthy engineer team. And so you want to avoid overburdening as well. So sometimes you have some developers that come into the company and they're really good, right? But they're juniors, right? So they're learning fast. They have a lot of energy. They're going for it. And so path of least resistance, we're going to go like, oh, well, look, can you look at this? Can you look at this? Can you look at this?
Another
At some point,
burnout.
a person's
Yep.
overburdened. And we have to release our patches so time constraints come in. And so code quality goes down, right? And that's an issue we have to battle every single day.
Now, we had to release our patches with those features in the old system. And, you're referring back to how we did it before.
Yeah.
In this new system, in this new way, it's a patch every month, but it's what is ready to go into those patches. We've said some version of this before.
Sure.
Well, Doyle, I wanted to ask you, are you here?
Just be super honest. We haven't been super.
What is that
good at
thing
sticking to the philosophy?
Beside his hand
You
here.
know, it was after.
It looks like a
after
tripod with like a
3. It was
part of a dildo on it.
It was after
Is that an
really
antenna?
long wait
Like, what
for
is that?
3.0, where some of us had to grow a really stupid beard.
Yes.
That it was okay. We're no longer going to wait for features anymore. We're going to do this quarterly patch, and then if a feature isn't ready, we're not going to wait for it. It gets pulled out. We're like, we weren't so good.
The famous
at
go, no,
adhering
go
to-
process.
Yeah, we weren't really good at that.
Which we internally call the go, go, go process.
Yes.
Which
we
we moved away from.
I'm very happy.
It's a wooble. Thanks
to
to
admit that the go no go process was a bit of a joke. It was
what
the
is that?
go go process, and it's because there was this mentality here.
Yeah, but what's the
where
nub?
We thought that we were a feature-driven project. Every patches, people expect X number of features.
Is it like? Do you think
be
it's
in
an
there.
antenna for their mics?
We have to make these targets.
That's a small
and
antenna.
keep
Usually
people
they're
engaged
flat.
Stuff, and it was just this Ouroboros of shit. Oh God, that's 3. Where we're constantly chasing our tail,
Ouroboros
not
of
getting
shit.
where we needed to go.
Just a
Now, that's not to
shit
throw the
eating
past
its own
aside.
shit.
We're super proud of what we've accomplished here, but there's a point where doing the same thing year after year,
The same way.
the same way, and we always made changes here and there, and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. So this year, and this whole thing that we're talking about today, and we'll talk
Not
about
really. They're just describing how bugs are usually fixed
time
and
to try
how they
something
need
different.
to
Now, this is incredibly scary.
distribute and
But
manage
I'm
the
gonna go on the
team
record
to be able to handle the
and say
bugs. So we're just talking
we've
about
been a
internal structure right
feature-driven
now.
project since the PU was first introduced in 2015. We doubled down on that after 3.0 at the end of 2017. To stop that and to turn all of our focus internally, to turn it
Yeah, no
all
worries.
inward, and to say to this incredibly talented programmer, you don't get to work on the super sexy hot new feature. You have to work on elevators.
They're basically saying, who do they
It's going to create
dedicate to
problems for
fixing
us,
bugs?
keeping
You
people
know?
engaged, keeping people interested and stuff like
No,
that.
you know how you make it so someone wants to work on
that's
elevators?
when
You
patches
tell them
come out,
that
and when
they're
we
going to
get
tell the
good people or
community
May or whatever, and
that
people
you're
are like,
working on the elevators, and so when it's
"Where's
fixed
my
or
new
when it's
feature? We
fixed,
haven't had a new feature,"
you look like a
so
hero.
That's going to create problems.
That's how you
for us on
motivate
the
people.
marketing side and stuff like this. This endeavor is going to create struggles.
Fuck the
for
marketing
us
team.
in how we position the game, and how we market the game, and how we attract players to come in and play. But we've tried the other thing for so long, and it's collectively what I'm seeing from everybody, from Chris to Aaron to Rich Tyler to everybody down the line, is something I've never seen in 10 years here. Is this everybody's hit a point where we've finally reached a consensus that we've done it this way enough. We have to try this now, and we have to make this experience better. Famously, we were watching, a big streamer jumped into game on Friday, had like 17,000 viewers, and 17,000 viewers were just watching him fall into an elevator over there. And it was just like, we had already made this decision. Like, this decision has been in place since December, but we were all just watching going, man, this can't come fast enough. So this is
marketing team should be
it has to be done.
A backseat. They should not have any decision.
I want to ask you another question about this assignment and the priority stuff. I just touched on it.
Go make beautiful cinematics. That's cool.
Unsexy, but super critical.
Right.
Obviously, it needs to be funded.
And the fix is a long and tedious process.
But if the game's good, it's going to market itself, man.
A system.
But all people know right now is that the game is broken.
2 or 3
No matter how much you market it to be as polished as you want them to think it is, people know the game is broken, and people that don't play the game know the game is broken.
Tying that person up
Putting out a fancy trailer is not going to change people's perspective of that.
Stick a junior on because you need that senior doing 3 other things instead. Is this not the ultimate developer Sophie's choice, and is this not what we've struggled with for a decade, at least the time I've been here? How are we fixing this now?
Well, so previously the answer would have been junior with some support, right? That's what we would have done before. It would have been, no, we can't compromise the feature. This work is important. It's going to be transformational for the PU. This fix or this rewrite, we're going to give a support network around someone that's in the team that's not necessarily one of our superstars, and I mean, I want a team where everybody can grow into a superstar, but sometimes, you have to be in the middle, right? And so the previous setup would have been something like this, right? Where we would give a support network, but the person in charge would have been, not necessarily like the leads and the people that really push the needle, because those would be on transformational features for the PU. The answer this year will be, no, we're using our transformational players to come and solve these problems for us, because they have to be solved, right? Like we keep talking about transit. It's not, transit has touched 1 million people at CIG, and we've tried to, keep it running for a while, but
just get AI in there, fix it all.
A real effort behind it, right? Which is to basically take resources from the transformational elements and go and fix the foundation.
So we've now called ourselves out on our own BS, and we're now putting everybody where they need to be. How do you decide whether that old feature is fixable or whether it's so far gone that it needs a refactor?
Sure. Well, so that's a good question, right? Because sometimes the worst cases like this is when a system or an issue is like almost fixed. Right, where like a developer comes in and is like, oh, I have a fix for this, right? But
with absolutely 0 bugs, 2035. Gotta go. Close it.
To answer that question.
I see you, Doyle. It's good to have you by. Good luck with whatever project you're now working on.
Compatible with what the PU is going to be, or what the technology behind the PU will be, which is a combination of the streaming technology that we've built before, that has been a very complicated and complex system, even on its own, without server meshing, and then the systems under streaming and server meshing together. And so there are systems in the game that are not adapted to that approach, right? And so when we look at one of the key problems that we see in the game, we're going to look at the underlying system, and if we need to rewrite, it'll be because, it needs to be rewritten to take advantage of streaming and server meshing properly, right? Versus trying to patch and kind of cobble it together, right, to make it work. So that's how we make the decision, is really we're going to have to look deep in all these things to decide which ones need. We've already done some of it, like we're calling out some stuff already.
Yeah, I literally saw a meeting earlier today where literally presenting every single engineer in the company, and it's like, okay, it's like, and it was a collective effort. It was okay, so it's where do we put this person? Where do we put this person? I've never seen in the time that I've been here such a granular kind of overarching. Okay, no, we need to reevaluate everything. All prior assumptions are done. Let's look at the entire field of players we have, and decide who's supposed to go where best. And stop everything, fresh start. That leads me to my next question here. So we're a company of near or over 1,000 people. I can't keep track across the studios in the world. But there's still a limited number of these engineers and programmers in the company. Delegating them between these tasks is hard enough.
Yeah.
But you've also got this thing called Squadron 42.
That's right.
Over here. And in October, we flashed up a big 2026 on that.
Yeah.
I was there when I saw the 2016 way back when, and Chad Zamzow spoke for all of us with like, what? So we stayed away from pointing at a year for so long, because we grossly underestimated in last time. But now we've done this. So you've got this.
It is very honest.
Goalpost. I was going to say hangman's noose, but goalpost is much more positive sitting here.
Yeah.
That's got to get done too.
Yeah.
So what is this split like? Is this just an even 50-50 split? This many,
and that's why I like this over
this many of them are on
the marketing SCLs or ISCs that we
hard? Is it flexible?
got last year.
Are there Joker cards that bounce between the projects? Does Chris have a veto every 3 months where he gets to rearrange the people? How does this work?
So that's an interesting question.
This is why I always like these devs, is that these SCLs and ISCs,
right? Because a lot of the gameplay systems that power the actor,
like pioneered other developers doing the same thing, but then they went more into like that marketing lean of pushing the patch rather than talking about what's behind the scenes and the development aspect of it. So this is back to the roots of it.
Features, right? In the let's say we take one team, right, which is the most important in this one, like the gameplay teams, right? That's where we have to be more fine-grained, right? There's this thing that we have to be careful about, which is context switching, right? Obviously, building a single-player cinematic game and building a multiplayer MMO-like game are similar, but the context switching between the two projects costs time, right? So you want to find a scheme where you have the resources on what you're trying to achieve at each milestone. Like Squadron 42 has its internal milestone and its cadence that it needs to respect this year, which is extremely aggressive, in order to get a game completely complete by the end of the year and ready for 26 release. And so there are resources that are, more suited to the type of things that Squadron 42 kind of needs right now in its polish phase and its finalization phase for all the levels and all the chapters. And so obviously these people will be favored to work on Squadron 42. So there's a series of people that are on there. I don't have an exact percentage, but it's not 50-50 because there are also things that are built on the PU that are beneficial on that side. And so the thing that if Jens was here with me, he would say the thing we need is flex, right? And so flex is when we need reinforcements, we can get them, right? And so we have a model now where there are a series of engineers that will work, dedicated to Squadron, but we can flex on both sides depending, right, on the milestones. And the two projects have now a cadence that's adjacent, and so we kind of know.
Right, because all the features that are coming from Squadron are being thrown into Star Citizen, and the bug.
Flex accordingly.
The bug fixes that are being updated in Squadron are being brought over.
Are similar in both ends, and some of the bug fixes that we need on SC
to SC
are also needed, right, on both sides, especially actor-related bugs, and so. It's a tricky balance, right?
Yeah. I hear what you're saying, and it makes sense. And I was in that meeting where Chris and Jens were talking about the need for flex and stuff, and I agree.
But
it's my first show in 2 months. Maybe it'll be my last one. There's a phrase that comes to my head when I'm listening to you. Says it's this jack of all trades and master of none thing. Now, that's not precisely analogous to this, but if people are bouncing, how does any one thing get done? That's the first question I have there. And I know there's no easy answer to this, but you agreed to come on the show and you agreed to take the uneasy question. So I'm taking advantage of our decade-long relationship and putting you on the spot here. Yes, it's absolutely important.
They definitely had a discussion of like, hey, I'm going to go in and act as the player base right now.
Because it will unblock 50 other people. So yeah, okay, we'll take those
'cause we needed it
from Star Citizen for 2 weeks and get it done. And that's a worthwhile use of Flex. And I understand.
Because a lot of times he'll be there defending the developers, which is fine. But now it's
keep that
defend the players.
Becoming just this, and we just left with this two amorphous blobs that never get finished.
Yeah, the key is in the specialization, right? So we have teams like
amorphous blob of gray.
Like the mission system team, for example, are highly specialized in the online mission system, right? And so
and Elliot Maltby, don't leave him out.
And Elliot, right? The Kid Rock of missions. But this assignment, right? You take the resources that are good at one element.
No, I'm blue right now.
Needs, and you can dedicate it. Then you're not losing anything from the other side, right? The flex obviously is there in your extra kind of
blackout
chunk of resources, right? Every team has like core members and extra members that can flex, and so the idea with this has been to make a plan where we can actually focus on the things that matter, and we pick what we think matters, right? So our player experience team on the SC side helps us, like for the bug fixes that we're going to be looking at in priority, we know what those are, so we make sure those are covered. So it's about not just prioritization and assignment and just blatantly going SC squadron, it's really about looking at what do we want to achieve? And on SC, we want to achieve a better playability. And so we're going to commit resources to that. The flex will come only when we ship, right? That's the moment where flex actually happens. So end of milestones. And so the impact at this will kind of be minimal because we minimize the context switch on the key resources. Like leadership is a key part of this. The right leads in the right places make a big difference.
That's why they just did restructuring.
Okay. Those ones need to not move.
It makes sense. It's not a question. It's not a question with an easy answer, and it's not a question.
Yeah, there's some good stuff.
Marketing shills would probably ask their execs live on the internet, but like I said, we're
going for it.
We're going for it.
Essentially. Monthly patch updates for bugs, restructuring the teams to figure out how to focus on bugs in Balanced Squadron 42 and SC.
Right.
That's the best TLDR I can give you.
So last week was just last week, right? Yeah. We released Alpha 401. I saw people online, people that, if I'm being as frank with those people as I am with you, probably should have. Some people expected the silver bullet patch. Like there was a letter in December, and they thought in January there would be a silver bullet where everything was fixed.
Of course not. Anyone that thought that was silly.
I personally find that expectation a bit silly. On the flip side of that, though, these are people who have been waiting. Yeah. They've been waiting a long time for us to.
How might AI help the CIG in the future? I was talking about that.
For us to have, for us to come in from the cold and realize that so many years of doing it this way, it's time to switch to do it this way. So I understand the frustration and everything is justified, if I'm being completely honest. It was not a silver bullet patch.
Sure.
This 402, it might even go to PTU today or tomorrow. We're here, so I can't see the chats that they're trying to put on PTU. For the end of this month, will not be the next silver bullet either. Right. As I said at the beginning of the show, this will be a thing where month after month we patch without new features, but just new content built on existing features and bug fixes, and slowly we start changing the temperature of the water, of our persistent universe. What was my question?
It sounded good anyway, but
I'm sure I was going somewhere. Is this the approach? Is this the? When can we start?
He's lost it. I lose it too.
So
sometimes.
I see what I read, and what I read is what I wrote for myself is dumb. I don't want to
go
ask
off
that
script,
question.
let's
I want to. 401 did not solve all the problems.
no.
Is it a legitimate improvement over 4.0?
In many areas, it's a drastic change. Yes. Especially for the issues that affected a lot of players during the break. If you played during the break on 4.0 preview, like a lot of very dramatic problems have been solved in 4.01 or hotfix, right? Because the 4.01 also includes all the hotfix from 4.0. So it is fundamentally, a better patch. But
yeah, he already apologized for that, Blackout.
in key areas that are very problematic.
Yes, I'm looking at a chat right now.
Very
drastic.
Yeah.
With
Yes.
with a lot of emoji.
From the observability standpoint, right? Not from the. I think that in terms of the forward-facing elements of the patch, we have regressed in 4.01, but from the infrastructure level, we have actually made a step forward, and so it's a 50-50 one.
The 2 step forward, 1 step back kind of thing.
I would say so. Yeah.
And the 1 step back just happens to be the part with the players. See?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. I know there's we're about to jump into this.
The Buggyverse.
Just I'm on the verge of something here, and I'm trying to figure out what it is in my head, what I want to say here. I guess what I really want to ask is, okay, it's not going to be in one patch. It was never going to be in one patch. Any expectations that it would be in 1 patch or 2 patch, frankly, a bit silly. But we're all, when I say we're all, I mean not just the people who play the game. I mean the people who make the game too. We're all frustrated.
Yeah.
We're all tired. We're all exhausted of logging in and seeing people stuck at one position and seeing elevators not showing up and people falling through trams and stuff like this. It's not going to be 1 patch, and it's not going to be 2 patches. Maybe it's 3, maybe it's 5, maybe it's 7. I guess the question I really want to ask you before we move into the JIRA section here is this plan going to work?
I think so. But
everyone in chat's sleeping.
Right, and I think
y'all tired.
Chris's letter kind of sets the commitment. That's what we needed, right? Going from the previous way of making the game to this new way, like a company of our size takes time to shift gears and change direction. And so even though you're like, okay guys, this is our focus now, reorder priorities, assignments, it takes a while before it actually takes form, right? And you need the people in the teams to really grasp what we're after, right? In terms of increased playability, what it means for them in the day-to-day, right? And I think that we have the commitment from the leadership to change this, and we have the means to do it. So in order to support this effort, right, it's not just we're talking about priorities and orders, and that's one part of the puzzle. But the other part of the puzzle is to make sure these teams are properly supported to do this, right? It's in paying the tech debt that's been plaguing the project for a long time, that we've been kind of dealing with, putting in the corner, right? Tackling some of it, but then, letting it build up. And I think that we need to attack that head on. And to support our teams, it's about helping them improve the output through better process, better pre-submission checks, better validation, building the tools that will allow them to have confidence that when they put a fix, that it's fixed. Or that when we say a bug is fixed, that it is fixed, which is, let's just say that. It's been an issue, right?
No.
Yes.
Yes, no.
But it's so
many
comfy.
times where I've seen everybody from you to Chris to Jens and
Everyone over on YouTube is having some sleeps. Actually, everyone over on YouTube is
on Twitch and YouTube, and
you,
they
I
find
think.
they find the JIRA, and the JIRA says it's fixed.
Yeah.
And it's like, I thought this says it was fixed. And that happens for a lot of reasons. We've talked a lot about how there are multiple causes for the same
the bug was
outcome.
fixed, but there are 5 other ones causing it.
That cause of that outcome was fixed, but now we've just exposed a second different cause for the same outcome. It's frustrating. We're doing a lot of. The problem is JIRA. Somebody in the chat. We're doing a lot of talk here. And we still got some more talk to do. The proof will ultimately be
in the action. Correct.
In the month after month, patch after patch. There won't be a patch every single month. Like I said, we're currently looking at about 9 or 10 on the schedule. We actually have a meeting tomorrow where we're going to kind of hammer that down and have a better idea. Certain things affect the patch cadence, but more patches this year than any year prior, but with less of the feature work, far less of the feature work, and more of the content and the bug fixes. The content that doesn't require new features. Like somebody in the chat was just saying, do less events. It's not the events that are problems. The events that are built on new features. Like I was about events built on existing feature work and stuff can still be fine. That's part of what we're looking at. So like this. The proof is going to be. The proof it's going to take.
Well,
it's going to take this year.
Ultimately, it's just the product, right? That's the thing that counts. Is what's the output, right? Does the output get better? Are we still dealing with the same problems that we've seen before? Did we actually solve any of those issues, or are we still going to look
That
at
ad? What ad?
Interrupted missions, or any
so in this context, features.
Right?
A feature
I think that's the
is
key, right? And that's how we should be measured. It's does this new method work? Does
a
the
feature
product
is
improving,
a new
in its
thing.
quality?
So a new feature would be engineering.
First time chatter says, did a dev ever play Siege of Orison? Yeah, Siege of
Content
Orison is a great example
would be
an
a
event
mission
that took
that requires you to go to a broken down ship and fix the power routing using the feature of engineering. So content is just, you can make content on features that already exist. You don't need new features to make content.
Current existing
what they're
proven
saying.
technologies, or whether you try to do something crazy. And
A
we're
safe
still gonna
stand-in,
try
yeah.
Let's be real. I've been here for too long to sit here in front of everybody and say, we're going to stop trying things new. That's not who we are. We're going to dramatically reduce the risk. We're going to dramatically reduce how far out over the edge with new things that we do. There are going to be moments this year where we still try something new here and there. And hopefully it works better than in the past because of our new tech preview situation, because of the new methodology. There may be 1 or 2 moments this year where we try something new and it still bites us in the butt. That's just, I've been here too long to even remotely hint at saying otherwise. But on the whole, what I've seen from people at every level this year is something I've not seen in the 10 years I've been here prior, and that is this collective realization that
if we don't put the game out clean, we're going to lose money and not be able to finish the game.
I'm more hopeful for this year than I've been for other years. It's not going to be a year full of a bunch of exciting new features. It's going to be a dramatically different year with different content and stuff. It'll be interesting to see how it works. It's scary. Because we've never.
No, yeah, it's completely different for the project.
Yeah, that's true. We wouldn't get the waves to complete them.
Persistent buggyverse.
Yeah.
So, so it's not all going to be fixed in 1 or 2 or even 3 patches. But if I'm allowed, I think I can speak for everybody in the community when I say what the F about some of these long-term issues. So these long-term existing issues that have plagued the game since 3.24 or longer. So I got together with folks from the community team, Tyler and Lenny and Freya and all those folks. I got together with people from the player relation team, Bayer and his folks and everything. And I even got a few of these from Chris Roberts himself.
There you go.
You know, I got a list of issues that I want to ask you about and get some status updates on.
Sure.
This is basically the part of the show where I hold your
Where we dive in.
butt to the fire.
Sure.
You ready?
Yeah.
So In no particular order. No,
hang on.
there's an order.
Hang on, before we start, right? So I'll be the messenger here. So we did a little prep, right? We looked at a couple of these because I needed to prep. Unfortunately, I don't know everything.
You don't know the current status of every single major bug in the game, Benoit?
No, I do not. I wish
Get
I
out.
did. I mean, that'd be great. But I did do the scavenging hunt to make sure that we got at least an update on most of those. And so that's,
Big stretch.
go for it.
I want to start with server and shard instability.
Yeah, I do that in Marvel Snap a lot too.
We've got frequent login issues,
Last minute,
including
complete
being stuck
everything.
at position 1 in the queue for extended periods, shard locks, the servers becoming unresponsive or dead with players extensively discussing strategies for finding working servers, often relying on joining friends' instances. So let's tackle these one by one.
Yep.
Login issues and being stuck at position 1.
So this one we're actually deeply investigating right now. It looks like, so we have, and I'll go deep with technical details here to properly explain, not just the status report. So matchmaking, right? So when you click on that button, join the universe, you're talking to the matchmaking service or the matchmaking system. He will find one of the shard instances that's available, right? All these shards report their health to make sure that they're, doing good. That if one of
He will find. There's one guy that's like, okay, where's this player going to go?
always reports a score.
There's just a dude.
And we will always try to match you to either something that has shard affinity to you, or
Shard affinity.
well, it's either your player is already in that shard, right? That's the ultimate affinity, or you've been in that shard before. So we try to have a level of shard affinity. Now the problem with stuck position 1 is that we've matchmade you on a shard. And now the matchmaking service is basically telling the shard, this guy's coming. That's called a process called authorization. And for some reason, now the latest update that I've got this morning on this is that the authorization call sometimes will take multiple minutes to close out. And so we don't know what the cause is on this one yet. It's kind of a new identified condition. But that's one that we need to hotfix absolutely on live in order to get that back in there.
So that's one that, when we figure it out, is fixable by hotfix. Some things require a patch, some things require a hotfix that can be done on the. So that's a thing that can be fixed
Hotfix.
any day of
Now, I can speak a bit about the hotfix, how it works, right? Now, I
Yeah, I was
don't
kinda
like to
curious.
use the word hotfix for everything, but that's the word we have for now, right? Because not all fixes are necessarily hotfixes. Some of them are just, they need to go out. But so what we cannot fix right now is a server change. So a change that goes on the game servers. That's one of the easiest things to roll out. So we can actually make a code change and then we start deploying it, and then your game servers will slowly start updating, right? And that is the easiest one to roll out. But there's some requirements for this. There must be no data change, no asset change, and the network compatibility of the build needs to be maintained. And so that means that there are some things we cannot hotfix because it would cause a client incompatibility. And so there are some bugs that we're like, we have a fix, but we can't roll it out, right?
we have to wait for the next patch window.
Well, yeah, exactly, right? Which we are talking about in interest of this to have now like maintenance windows where we can actually roll out data fixes.
Because the thing with the patch, you can't just roll out a new patch. You have to get all teams that are working on stuff to commit things to a main build that goes out. But the problem is that if you just take one change that someone's made,
we kind of try to keep them the way they are, but this
roll it out to a new main patch, everyone's got to now work off that new main build.
So we're trying to nail the process now for that. And so the second kind of thing we can change is a hybrid fix. Now those are very hard to do because a hybrid restart will disconnect all players on a shard, and so we can't upgrade a shard that's already running, and so we have much fewer game shards now than before, and so that means that disrupting them will have a drastic effect on the live environment, and so those fixes are a bit of a problem. So typically it reflects in the number and the name of your shard when the hotfixes roll out.
Chat is just spamming. Do it! Just do it! One of the things that we don't do that a lot of MMOs do is have that regular Tuesday downtime or something like that. And those are the times where those things are necessary for other games. Is this something we've considered?
Yes, that's what we're trying to prepare for now, is to have an official maintenance window that we're not thinking about systematically doing a downtime, but we're thinking about scheduling it, and then we'll let players know before that happens, and then we'll be using those moments to do infrastructure changes or upgrades that normally we would have to wait for.
I think that's fine.
That would be. I'm just looking at chat right now. There's nothing you've said in the last hour and a half that's getting the reaction. They're just like, yes, give us a maintenance window. It's your shit. 4.
No, that's 5.
Is that 5?
I think so.
5. Load times went way up.
Yeah.
In 4.0.
Yes.
Way up.
That's
Benoit.
right. Yeah.
Especially for Pyro.
Pyro side.
And frequently players would actually time out of their load.
Yeah.
What gives?
So interestingly, now that's still being investigated, but the current hypothesis on this is that the way the Pyro system was built. First of all, the requirement when you connect, right? What the hell is the game doing, right, in that loading screen? And then you open the console and there's stuff flying around. What is it doing, right? It's going through this context establisher set of tasks, which are like all the phases for the connection, right? Currently, when players load into Pyro and have a long load time, it seems to be related to the way the system was built, where
it's true, Blackout.
There's an entity.
How do they not know this?
In
Amateurs.
the Pyro system that holds the spacescape for the system. Right now, we're peeking behind the curtains of how the levels are made, but there's a requirement for the CET connection, right? That requires that all the entities that the client needs to load need to have an authority assigned, right? Now, so this is directly a server mesh change, and so if an entity that you're loading doesn't have an authority yet, which could be any server in the mesh, right? If one of them doesn't have an authority yet, then the load time will have to wait for this entity to gain an authority. Now, how can this entity not have an authority? So our current hypothesis is that if the server that is hosting that Pyro Spacescape entity, which has a giant radius, so every client loading into Pyro needs that entity. If the server that hosts that entity is currently rebooting because it has a crash on it, then all players will have to wait for that server to do the full provisioning loop, boot up, acquire, load the data, acquire the entity, and then players will load in. For some players, that overrides that busts the time it needs for the timeout for the login. So that's our current lead, and we think we have a fix, but we're obviously that's another one that we would roll out. I think it's a code fix on the hybrids that we can actually roll out for that.
While you were giving that answer, Chris Roberts just messaged and says, "Benoit, are we having login issues again?" and Guillaume is like, "I'm poking Ahmed because Benoit's on SCL talking about this right now." So. Get off his back, Chris. Delete. No, okay. So I know I see people who are stuck in this thing who are waiting. Like, they shut their client down and they
Hit
log
enter.
back in. They shut their client down. Like, is that?
I'm very
is that
cat-like.
helping
Why am
their
I cat-like?
case, or is that hurting their case?
Well,
It's because my ticks. I purr,
I will let this
make noises.
So
I'm gonna head out.
So on everybody kind of has a recipe for fixing login issues, right? A lot of them involve disconnection, shard hopping, loading into AC, rebooting twice, printing a document. I don't know, right? That is actually one of the things that we've identified as missing in our testing process. So we do some load testing before we launch a patch. And so we test with clients a lot of.
That was because I have tics like Tourette's, so I make vocal tics like
what we're not testing
noises like this.
is
So I thought you were hearing my purring.
Persistent universe, launch client, persistent universe, AC, right? Alt F4, client, persistent, and so a lot of the issues that we've seen in the 4.0 release, when we put in the persist hanger flow, for example, that allows you to log into your hanger, the system for this needs to move your player, we call it unstow your player into the shard. It also needs to unstow your hanger. Now, when players are constantly logging in and out of shards, now you've got multiple shards doing this process for you, and they need to complete that process. We've identified a ton of concurrency issues with this in 4.0, elements that we didn't test for because you test the load, not the repeated concurrency. And so that's one thing we've identified that we absolutely need to add to our testing process, because it's one of the other things. I've talked about this before. The difference between PTU and live is like a 20x increase. Yeah. That's also one big difference, is that on PTU, players don't shard hop that much.
One of the forever things that if there's a double-edged sword of PTU, and there are many,
yes.
but this is like the one that's always amused me. People are more patient on PTU than they are on live because they recognize that they're helping us, they're helping the development of the game, they're doing a job, and that patience is necessary and wonderful. Yeah. But it doesn't make for an effective test of live, and it's yet another reason we have to go to these live environments sometimes, and we don't discover these things till live environments, because live is where Hyde comes out.
Right.
So many people in PTU are Dr. Jekyll, and they're all nice and knowledgeable and restricted, and then live environment is where it's interesting. It's all right.
Well, that's one of the key differences, right? And so a lot of the issues that are plaguing us right this second, right, are still remnants of that we are tracing a lot of them. A lot.
See, I don't know. I was always had that patience with live as well, because it's an alpha. I treat that as a test bed.
Actually digging into a lot of those to be able to make sure that when the team would come back, that we'd have some traction on some of those.
Last question on servers, because then we're going to get to the character story.
I think that's a problem, a disconnect with the marketing, is they treat the live as if it's a game that's complete, right?
Well,
so people treat it that way, and then when it's broken, they get upset. But we need to just treat it as a test bed. It's an alpha.
Shard lock, we never really call this shard lock. This is like a community term. You're never really locked into a shard, but your character can only be into one. And
is it like a D12?
If you get match made into one of, let's say, US E1B 010, everybody's favorite shard, which it is true, that shard is cursed. It's tell you right now, it's always 010. I don't know why, but that one is always the one.
Take it out to the shed and shoot it.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter which patch. The US E010 shard, for some reason, is the bane of our existence.
All right. Well.
Anyway.
Don't go on that one.
So you go play there, your character will get unstowed. So Hybrid will unstow your character, moves it from the global database that allows you to go anywhere to that shard. Now you are, according to the community, shard locked, right? Because you're playing in that shard right now. What's supposed to happen is that if you quit the client, or you get disconnected, or the client crashes, when you come back, you're going to get match made on this shard again, right? Now, if that shard is no longer available during the time where you decided to come back or whatever, then that's going to give you a nice little 60K error, right? Which will say, hey, your character is there, that shard is no longer available. Now, what that means is that behind the scenes, there's a process that's taking if the shard is crashed, there's a process that's currently processing that shard and will stow back your character. So it's time. Time will fix it, right, in this case. During the 4.0 preview, some players got into a state where the character could not get stowed back. That was a backend bug that prevented that from happening. And so their character was kind of seemingly corrupted. And so we had to go in and fix a lot of those. That caused a permanent 60,030, I think is the one, where basically some players were stuck in that mode for a long time. And so we had to actually do manual actions to solve that. But otherwise, in most of the time will make your character go back to the stow position. And then once you're stowed back, you're able to go back in there. So that's what we call or I think that's what the community calls shard logging.
Yeah, it was definitely the 630. It's building a reputation. You know, it's coming for 30K's crown right now.
Slowly.
Let's talk about elevators and trams.
All right.
Let's talk about elevators and trams.
We didn't talk about repair. You don't want to talk about repair?
Well, actually, that question was mostly about the 60/30 and the stowing. You basically covered all that stuff.
That's kind of true.
So, elevators and trams.
Yeah.
Broken or missing elevators in various locations, preventing access to hangars and other areas, or simply trapping players inside. Trams that either let you fall through the floor or yeet you into lower orbit. My question to you:
What the fuck? That's 6. So, brief history, right, of transit.
Jared just said, I'm going to do what I want.
It's been in the game for a long time. And transit in the context of streaming is already a non-trivial problem to solve, because and I need to dive into the why, so to explain a bit, the complexities behind it. But so the transit system is composed of multiple components, right? You've got peripherals, so that's, for example, the button you press to call an elevator or a tram. It's the indicators that say, hey, the tram's coming in, this amount of time. Those are peripherals. You have gateways, which are locations where a carriage can stop at. So, for example, if you're in Lowerville, and you go to the train, where the train stops, it's like a station. That's called a gateway. You have carriages, which are either elevators, trains, trams, all these things that move along a path. And then they go from gateway to gateway, and they respond to orders that are submitted from peripherals. All sounds nice and dandy. What's the problem, right? So in any game, any other game that doesn't have full-on level streaming, all of these things are always loaded. So the manager, the piece of code that actually is managing the fulfilling the orders and moving the carriages in general, or has the logic of the carriages, is always, all this network is streamed in. It's all loaded, so it's always available. It knows where the carriages are, it knows what's happening, everything is there. In our environment, because of our SOCS technology that allows us to have more performance on the servers because we unload the rest of the zone, that means we unload those carriages. So think about your Lowerville train that you see stop at you.
If no one's there, it unloads.
On the server, if nobody's on the track, it doesn't have a carriage there. It's unloaded, right? And so the current iteration of the system actually destroys that carriage and will recreate carriages when it needs it, right? And there's been a ton of issues with this. So that's the first part, right, is the streaming part. That makes it a bit more complicated. The second part is that the way the system was built initially, it would fulfill these orders to those send orders, basically. You call the elevator from your hangar, I need to send a lift there. So the system is going to tell the lift to move. The lift moves on its own, right? So you will jump and then do the actual path. We want those to be physicalized, so they're actually following certain paths. Now, the issue is that combined streaming with these orders and state is lost in certain conditions. And so the system just needs a whole lot of changes on its communication layer to be reliable, and it needs a fundamental change in how it fulfills these orders. Instead of just sending a message to a carriage and hoping for the best, the transit manager needs to be actually always tending towards the state that it should be in, so that it can self-heal for any kind of issues, right? Whether creating the carriage failed or streaming out and losing a piece of it, the system needs to change to be able to properly do that. So that's what the new system that we're writing is going to do. It's going to solve these communication issues with streaming, and it will make the system self-heal. But we also need to do fixes to the current system immediately, right, to get that working. So now we do have a crack team on this right now, where we've significantly increased the size of the group that is looking at the current elevators issues, which we have absolutely regressed on. and they're looking at adding the self-healing component I just talked about directly in the system. So I was happy to hear that
How
we
far
have
is that?
now proper reproductions for at least a couple of cases where the gateways are basically becoming defunct. And so you call the elevator and it never shows up, right? That's the number one case that we see at the moment. Or the other one is a lift shows up, you press a button and it doesn't move, right? So that's when the transit managers lost this carriage, or the gateway is no longer usable. And so now we have those reproductions, and they're not just happening at to players. Now we have an actual case where we're able to actually go down and we've seen what actually is going on, so we can put the self-healing things I just talked about to fix it.
So in the past, when we've talked about some of these issues and why they haven't been fixed or whatever, it's because we've had this aversion to doing double work.
Yeah.
We don't want to work on a Band-Aid when we know the long-term solution is ripping the whole damn thing out and replacing with something else.
Try to do minimal change on the existing and set.
What you just described, though,
is
doing both. Though so
they're making a self-healing process where they're also
premise here.
trying to fix the
At
immediate.
present, some amount of persons are working on writing a brand new transit system built for the server meshing reality,
Correct.
and all this stuff.
Yes.
But at the same, that's going to take X number of months to do. Not wanting to wait for that because
We need to fix.
you need to fix now.
Right.
There's also another group of people focused on a short-term self-healing fix to the current system
Yes.
that may not fix everything, but will dramatically improve it. Is our hope.
Yes. Well, we want it to function the way it should function, which is all the time, like reliable, right? Now, it might mean, because we are still going to have the issue of the streaming out and some error handling, that it might take longer for a lift to arrive in certain cases, but it will arrive, and it will
Because it'll have that error checking, it'll have that self-healing.
Correct.
So the idea is that it won't just not show up.
Right.
You won't just fall through it. You may wait twice as much as you were used to.
in those cases.
but
Yes.
then it will show up.
Correct.
Well, that would be something. At least,
It
at
would
least
be
for the short term,
Yes.
that would be something.
Yeah.
Okay, and that helps me explain why we're doing both.
Right. No, because we need to
why we're
fix
doing
it
short-term
right now.
fixes and
Exactly.
long-term. Okay, that makes more sense to me. Somebody asked, do the elevators in Squadron 42 work?
They use the same system, but the streaming bubbles in Squadron 42 are a lot higher, so they will stay streamed.
Single player, yep. And then many people are like, just build stairs. Like, who knows? Maybe we can convince Ian and Nick's will be all stairs.
Yeah. Or ladders, maybe.
Yep.
I don't know.
Hangars.
Yeah.
Hangars. All right. Failing to spawn ships correctly. Platforms getting stuck. Ships being destroyed while they're stored.
Yeah.
I saw that one. I'm like, what? Like, or hangars being assigned incorrectly. One by one. Where do you want to start?
All right, I gotta come clean first. On the ships being destroyed when stowed, that was 100% me. So, we were looking at some.
Hold on. Look right in the camera.
Yes.
It was you, Benoit.
Yes. So that was a back-end change that we did
FanDuel at all.
to try to alleviate some of the load that we were seeing on some areas. And one of those side effects that was unplanned was that the location ID of ships weren't being updated when they changed. And so the way the ASOP terminal, again, moving sands, right, does its reconciliation, which shows you what's available for you. It actually uses the location as the key element to know if a ship is actually, available. Not only is it stowed, but it needs to be in the right location. Now, this change that I had made for optimization did cause, for a couple of days, the issue where the locations weren't updated, and so all your ships that were stowed in lower locations would show as destroyed. But they were there, but they would show as destroyed in ASOP. And so, yeah, I'm gonna take the blame for that one. That was me.
Is this like if a branch falls in a forest and nobody can hear it? Does it really? The ship's not technically destroyed, but if it reports destroyed and you can't call it because it reports destroyed, isn't it? destroyed,
Yes,
even if it's not
yes,
destroyed?
Yeah. Well, actually, claiming it would actually destroy it too. So technically, it's destroyed.
Right, but we resolved that one.
Yeah, that one's resolved.
Okay, so let's get back. So let's talk about failing to spawn ships correctly, platforms getting stuck.
Right. So let's talk about hangars first. Right.
Okay.
So, I mean, people that play more on the PTU know how the system works, but it's actually a bit special in that, first of all, the hangars are instance. So they're instance on your shard. You have access to your hangar based on, your ownership of it. But all the hangars on a given ATC gateway, so these are the actual hangar doors on the stations, right, are all stacked on top of each other, right? So that's why that there's been bugs in the past during the PTU cycles for 4.0 where
you can
you
hear
would
somebody
hear,
else's hangar.
that bug took a while to fix because it required technology change. But that was also crazy. Like the sound was just, incredible. And so what that means is that when you're in the station and you want to go to your hangar, you have two options. One of them is use the lift. Now we just talk about the lift, right? When you call the lift, it will actually unstow your hangar, create your hangar, and then give you permission to go there, right? Right the moment you hit that button. So there's a lot of things that need to happen in right succession.
It's a bunch of elevators.
Then you enter your hangar. There's render culling that comes into play that will make sure that you only see your hangar, even though everybody's on top of each other, that physics only affect you, right? So they're all stacked. Now, one of the big problems that we're dealing with right now, and we've been diving into it for a while, is that the ship elevator, has a couple of issues, right? I've seen, an Avenger rising from the grave through it. I've seen, ships spawning on top.
So there's a lot going on right now, so
and so there's two
Chatting
problems.
too much here.
The first one is that the platform itself is it's moved, right? It's not a physical movement, so it's not physics driving.
There are some games I know where it does break.
Physics enabled.
A similar concept.
That is a recipe for disaster.
I forget what it was.
Correct. When you see flapping like that, it's like the combination of things, right? And so, we're currently like discussing a solution because there are limitations that the way it's made is the way that they were limited to make it, but we need to fix it. So it's either both elements are statically moved or they're both physically driven. You can't have this combination. That's what causes all these things. So that's why sometimes server FPS is good, performance is good, all your ships are going to go up, that platform, everything's great. And some other times, half the ships is in the platform, and that's an issue. So currently we're rechanging the layout and the setup of the hangars to set the timing of this. If there's a ship on
you should make that game
when you leave, there's a possibility in the timing where the ship will be stowed with the hangar instead of being stowed on its own, and then the hangar is clean. And that condition is not properly detected when you unstow the hangar again. And so in the cases where, for you as a player, you're not going to see a difference in that you leave with the hangar on the ship on the pad, you leave your hangar, you come back on another shard, and you just go to your hangar, your ship's going to be on it. But if you call a ship from the station, and the ship was carried with your hangar up and down, then the ATC is not going to know that there's a ship on the pad, and he will attempt to spawn it there, and that's where crazy happens. And so currently we're looking at that complete cycle to make sure that the timing is correct. And there's also a couple of other issues related to this. Some corruption of data can happen in that case. And so we have an entire team dedicated.
Why would they need to be AAA?
Just making sure these issues get solved, because they're affecting everybody.
You could do that concept at any level.
Though, that one other issue that we had with the hangars got solved related to how you exit the hangar. So
usually in a ball of flaming wreckage.
well, or after 25 minutes of queuing where the system tells you, hey, in 100 seconds you'll be able to leave. And so we did hotfix a change to the way what I call the hangar queues are managed, right? So again, the ATC manages the queues. It's managing how you exit your hangar.
Wouldn't it be easier to sell that they're bugs if it's one person making it?
Concurrency. So when a lot of players are in the same location, leaving and entering, this queue and those timers would get completely out of whack. And so it would either
exactly. So it's easier to sell that it's bugs.
Someone to leave or enter. We're talking 10x the time, or give you literally 3 seconds to leave, and then players would get stuck in the doors, where the doors would go, and then would try to squeeze in it. The doors would squeeze them out, and then the rest is a little bit of a party. So we hopefully have something on live already alleviating this, but we're still tracking to confirm it completely that it doesn't happen again.
For the folks that are still in the chat saying, please just give us staircases, the hangars are instanced. The stairs would just still go to, the elevator is a portal between the real world and your instance world. Even if you spent 5 minutes going up and down stairs, you would still have to hit a portal where you have to queue and push a button and it makes a portal for your thing. It's the same thing. An elevator is just the mechanism. Stairs don't solve it, unfortunately. Hard work of developers and engineers solve it. What's the obstruction tuning and stuff? I saw, I've seen images internally of the elevator won't go down, and then Brett or somebody on player experience or whatever will jump in and go under the thing, and they'll see a dragonfly stuck under the elevator that stops it from going down.
And so the problem we talked about physicalization of the platform is definitely related, because then the obstruction code that will, you can't bring down the ship elevator because there's obstruction, initially was like, if there's like a speckle of dust under that platform, it's not going to move, right? Which was, let's just say, a bit
too aggressive.
Yeah, now you could just have that collision mesh stuff you talk about.
Cleanup. To just try to stow back if
the physics-specific event system to have it if it collides, just unstow what's under it.
It still needs work to make sure that even if, I remember one of the,
because it's under, it's not supposed to be there, right?
The water bottle would clip through the platform and then would prevent the hangar from functioning completely. And so now we're trying to, again, in the interest of self-healing for these systems, right? It's about, let's not just work at preventing the condition, let's also work at what if it happens anyway.
Yeah, you got to think of the edge cases.
Do aggressive cleanup to keep the system working. Like the hangars, the elevators, the hangar doors, the ATC systems are all part, in my mind, of what I call the traversal of the game, right? And bugs that affect the traversal of the game, that prevent you from going to your ship and leaving.
Some of the biggest blockers.
Entering in
and that's the issues we're having now.
They are of the utmost priority, right? They have to be solved, because if that doesn't work, then
you can't use any of the other content.
Critical.
And lastly, I'm looking at this JIRA for the hangars being assigned incorrectly. Location ID, it's got your name on it.
Well, I've been investigating that one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You're not responsible.
I'm not responsible for it yet, until proven otherwise. But in this case, it seems that there's a condition where you can have more than one hangar in a location of the same size, which should not happen. And when the system gets in this state, it might pick one or the other, which can lead to you not having a hangar at all. So that's the thing that we're trying to find out, how it actually happens.
Do you think they should?
Second batch of hangar issues.
Sure.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
Hangar lifts that clip players' ships and destroy them. Doors not
maybe down the road
closing correctly.
Once they make it
losing your personal hangar completely.
more usable.
And I have the overlap.
We're now trying to compete with like Epic.
That
It'll be really hard.
That
should not be a priority for them, because that's a whole other developing an engine and fixing the engine. While they're doing it for themselves, doing it for other people.
Well, so
now you need support teams and
I was going to touch a bit on
like support chat and all that for developers.
Ship cleanup, but density cleanup in general.
They said it; they're not planning on it right now. Maybe down the road, but
earlier in the show, right? So
I just don't. I don't think that should be a priority for them right now.
Debris that are causing intersections, slowing down physics, and so that's one of the reasons why we've been able to
maybe
get
in like 10
performance
years,
of the servers up in general.
but definitely not now.
Now,
they need the game out running smooth at operating as an MMO
is actually
for a few years
responsible
before
for
they even
ping
think
glow
about that.
That shows up on a ship and will just pop it, right? And so that's part of how we try to resolve the physics intersection for ships, right? And the way it works right now is that it has a smoothed number of frames where if the physics engine is like heavy intersection, at some point you will go like, okay, something needs to happen. The way we handle that event is still a bit too aggressive right now. And so in some cases, it triggers a heavy intersection and will pop up the ship.
Oh, he got his H there.
We don't want this to happen to attended vehicles ever. And so we're working right now at adjusting that flow so that only unattended vehicles in full intersection for a very long number of frames are cleaned up. And so right now it's a bit too aggressive for this.
At the same time, they release it, now they got competition, right?
Ping glow is we added that to make sure we could identify those problems which we expected would kind of happen until we tuned the system properly.
We are at 2 hours.
Wow.
I want to keep going.
Yeah, let's go.
Pete, Dave, Lauren, you okay? Honestly, I'm not even joking. If you need to go, just leave the camera switched on Benoit. Yeah. Nobody needs to see this face anymore. Just leave the camera switched on Benoit, and we're going to keep going.
Or just go wide.
Cool? Okay, but seriously, if you do have to go, do it. Just wave and be like, it's on Benoit. I can see it. I want to keep going.
Yeah.
Inventory and item persistence issues.
Right.
Items are disappearing from inventories, ships, and storage containers. This includes bought items, looted items, mission cargo. What's causing this? What are we doing to resolve it?
Well, so on the inventory system, right, there's, or I should say on the item system. So the way the entities are tracked, entities have entity classes that define what they are, right? And there are, I want to say, tags or configurations we can attach to.
The guy floating in space is my favorite.
For things that we want to automatically clean up, right? Again, we're back on cleanup, right? Because it's important. So, for example,
it reminds me of my intro of one of my videos.
Characters will have what we call an auto stow or auto bury policy. Auto stow will bring something back to an inventory after certain conditions are met. Auto bury will destroy an entity if certain conditions are met, right? Automatically. So that's our ability. That gives us our ability to go, this thing is good, let's say for 12 hours, and after that, you can get rid of it.
This is one of my intros in my video.
Debris or things we spawn on the side or things like that. And so
just having the person floating by.
Losing items, for example, from CZs that were acquired in CZs.
Mm-hmm. It's port also,
yeah. At that point, it wasn't even a system issue. It was really, those items were flagged to auto-destroy, basically. And so some players looted armor and were like, started using those armors. And then when the conditions met for the auto-bury, those items disappeared, right? I almost lost this one. And so that was a bad setup, right? And so now I know that a lot of those items have been retagged, right? And so the auto policy will not apply to them, or not if they're attended. Again, it's all about making sure that the right tags are on them. So that explains some of the inventory things. There was one I was looking into with a player actually recently where
it's so toxic.
When you read your inventory, there's caching going on.
Free LSR.
And when your inventory changes, that cache is supposed to be expired. In certain locations, for some reason, that cache, like especially in CZs, was causing some problems. So opening your inventory in the CZs would be empty, and then you open it again, and then you store something in it, and now other items show up. That's a telltale issue of the cache. So we're actually revamping the query cache right now for these elements to make sure it's always consistently updated. Your stuff is there. It's just
it just can't show.
It's cache as nothing. Yeah, exactly.
With long-term persistence, it seems like there's it seems like there's always some level of something disappearing.
Yeah.
Every patch.
Yeah.
What's going on here?
So LTP is a fairly complicated.
Yeah, they consistently got 4K viewers or no?
but if I can simplify it as much as I can, when you stow something in an inventory, and we take that item and we process it. So let's take a easy example. Let's say a single gun, a P4. You have a P4. You put in an inventory that you own. A record is created for it's an ownership record that says this player owns a P4, right? Now these records we write to all the time. If you unstow that gun, meaning you put it in your hands, right? We destroy that record because now it's in play. So you play with the gun and then you stow it back. That recreates the record. So these records should always represent what you've got in your inventory that you own. Now, where it gets complicated is that these things can be hierarchies that contain items that then need to be processed. And so we don't persist everything to LTP. Only a select set of entity classes that designers control will go into LTP. For example, ships is a good example, things like that. Now, when we stow a ship, we look at its entire hierarchy, and there might be things attached or loosely left in the ship that are LTP.
On the list.
Correct, and now they have to be added in. So also with LTP, there's also sometimes perception issues that things should persist, right? Like, for example, a classic case is a ship left in the shard between patches, right? You're flying your ship in 3.24 and we release 4.0. If you leave the ship there in the shard, right, you don't have an ownership record for it, right? The ship needs to be stowed in order to be there when we recover it. But we do think that there are still issues with some of the recording events in cases where ships are claimed, because at that point, when you join into the next patch, let's say you have a ship you bought with UEC, and you store it at a location. That ship actually, its recorded ID comes from your long-term persistent record of that ship. And in the case where you claim that ship again, we think that there might be some cases where the inventory, the record data doesn't follow, and so the LTP record is not recreated. And that could be a source of some.
What happened?
And a bit like you were talking about transit, we want to do a two-prong approach on this. One of them is,
what's going on here?
We want to find
Why is it doing this again?
System for this, which is that we don't want to have to wipe the database at all. So we want to be able to keep your inventories intact between patches and have a forward compatible model where we can actually keep all this data there the way it is, and then
like checking out a file from Perforce. You're not destroying it. You're
correct.
Copying out. Nobody else can write to it. Nobody else can mess with it.
That's right.
It's yours.
Yeah.
And then when you stop it, it goes back. It goes back in. So it's not a non-destructive.
Yeah. And
like
so
checkout system.
And so our goal with this is that's a fairly large endeavor. I mean, like, we're not going to fix it in a second, right? We're going to still hot patch the current system to make sure that the cases that we've seen are fixed. But the longer term fix is to make sure we only persist the data that's going to be compatible. So differentiate between the serialized variables on entities.
The problem with creating all these new systems is, are they going to have their own bugs then that you're going to have to say, oh, let's go to a new system again after that? And we've seen that multiple times in the Star Citizen development.
Those will be stored in the global database, and between patches, our goal is to just keep that database like this. So there's no, oh, we're getting records back from a thing that has been recording for 3 months. It's like, no, it's the exact same inventory that you have on the live patch and the new patch. So there's no loss at all, right? So that's our target for this new LTP solution.
And those are obvious. Those are bugs and inefficiencies and stuff. There has still always been this. There's been this existing problem. I think it's been here since I've been here, but I think it's really started to really gain steam in like 2017, 2018, and it's been forever. It's this unique item recovery.
Sure.
I'm pretty sure there was even a thread today that reached the top of one of those channels, where it's just like, we get all these cool things. You get cool things packaged in with your pledge purchases or whatnot, and then you're too afraid to wear them. You're too afraid to use them because you fall through one planet, fall through one lousy planet, and you lose it forever. We're not going to go into it here because there's another show dedicated to it, but that is absolutely prioritized this year. It's prioritized in a way that I've never seen it prioritized. The talk is stopped and the work is starting. So we've got a signed off design, and people are on it right now. And
I mean, the thing that speaks a little bit to also the change in mentality that we're trying to affect, which is tackling things like this, right? Are not just bugs and quality issues, but also playability issues, right? That need to be addressed as well.
It's going to be a 3-tiered solution. Again, we'll have a show where we go through it all. I'm filming with Declan next week on it like this. There'll be a short term that'll help a lot. There'll be a long term that'll help even more, and then the super long term is crafting. And basically, you just you get blueprint for everything. You can just make your own, and it's like that, so you never ever have to worry about it. So it's a multi-stage thing, but this first stage just got signed off, and it's in active development. And
you excited?
I joke. Not a joke. I say it with all sincerity that the same conversations the backers have, we have internally just 3 weeks earlier.
100%.
Been.
I mean, sometimes
grinding our gears.
Sometimes it's scary. Right?
For everything.
Sometimes it's scary.
So that to see actual movement on this right now is exciting.
Yep.
One last hanger call out before we go. The aggressive ship despawning mechanic.
Yeah.
Sometimes ships are despawned while people are still inside them.
Yeah, that should not happen ever. In fact,
it's nice to hear it said out loud.
No, the system is supposed to be made that we have a passenger count on each of those ship entities, and if there's a passenger, even if he's not piloting, and even if it's not his ship, we should not be despawning those ships at all. And so that's definitely on the lookout right now as to why it happens. I mean, there's a couple root causes. Unfortunately, for it just looks the same, right? Again, if you don't have the pink glow, right? The pink glow is a telltale tells it's physics, right? It's the physics detection, which we're going to ease up. If the ship just despawns out of midair, right? I've seen this happen with ATC. Sometimes has, with the timer problem that we fixed before, had an issue where it could despawn your ship mid-flight when you left, which was egregious. I think that one has been solved, but jury's still out. I want a proper confirmation on it. The one where your ship is considered unattended.
I enjoy your tea. Thanks for hanging out for a bit.
Like that needs to be solved right, like hot fix right away.
Mission bugs.
Yeah.
Now we went through a refactor with 4.0 that reduced the mission options, hopefully temporarily, but we're still seeing a lot of the same issues that we saw before. Arriving at a location and having no AI spawn, mission objectives failing to register, and cargo disappearing upon completion. The Fight for Pyro event going on right now is particularly affected, with many players unable to complete it, or various aspects of it due to bugs. Save Stat in Chapter 1 was like walking through a minefield trying to figure out which parts worked and which parts didn't. The Net 402 has more mission stuff in the content. It's like, talk to me about missions.
Sure.
Please. Elliot, this one's for you. I gave you crap on the other one, but I'm doing this for you, man.
Okay.
Help us out.
So, let's start at the beginning, right?
Okay.
What did we do in 4.0 for missions, right? So the way missions worked previously is that we had first one server with all the entities, all the 100 players playing on it. When you played missions, there was an invisible entity created on the server somewhere. The location doesn't matter, right? That would manage that mission, right? And the way the missions work, if you can picture it in your mind, is that there's a mission management module, and then when you reach certain locations, right, when you stream in that location, a mission module at that location is going to actually kick in and has its own logic for, like, if you're picking up a box, for example, let's say a box delivery mission, you get to that location, there's a mission module that pops up. Does the pickup logic. When you unpick up, it's like, oh, you need to go to this other one. Then there's another mission module at that location. Now that's the way, and then if I add global events on top of that, There's a global events manager on top of that. That was like a global thing on the server. Now, I've said global multiple times here. Every single one I said, every single time I said global is not compatible with server meshing because we don't have a global entity setup, right? And so what needed to happen is a fairly large engineering task. I hate that we just said refactor, that we branded this as refactor, because it's really a new core mission system behind the scenes, which is completely outside of the game servers and does the orchestration of what a mission is, right? And the global flow of a mission. Hey, you have something to complete. There are phases, objectives, there's state tracking, there's requirements, and rewards, right? And so it's the mission system is what we call it. There's no longer a mission entity that's hold on the server that just manages the whole thing. They all communicate to the mission system that then ticks the logic of the mission forward. Even though all these mission modules, written by the Kid Rock of Mission, can do all kinds of fun things, at each of the different locations. So the fundamental work was to make sure that the mission system was functional in server meshing. That was really the part of the gameplay element that was completely incompatible with server meshing. Another piece that we needed to solve in the build for 4.0 and as part of the mission system is how markers work. And so markers are always a big issue. Have always been a big issue in Star Citizen since the very beginning. And with server meshing, these became even more problematic. So, let me state the problem. You're on a Pyro game server, and I'm on a Stanton game server, but I add you to my party. Now I want a party marker on you, right? My game server doesn't even have your star system loaded. Like, it doesn't even know what's going on, right? And so for that, we needed a piece of technology that would allow the streaming system to stream your entity marker on my server so I could actually see your position changing. And so we've built all of this in place, but that's a fundamental change to how markers work. And
wouldn't that just...
Now I'm going to dive into why do we have that many bugs?
Shouldn't that work from replication, though?
A replication layer for the mission system itself.
Almost, right? Like for things that are tracking objectives across systems, things like that, right? And so the way we call those things, like the markers, are independently streamable entities, which basically allows us to have a marker on an entity that's anywhere in the server mesh. Now that system works, right? It's in place. It's been fairly reliable, but that touches on all the markers in the game, and so a lot of issues came up from that. And one of the things that we have not tackled with the refactor is how missions are built.
It's good to get this insight on it.
To Elliot's credit, right? I think that
we're using Elliot's name, but there's
I'm
James,
using him. There's James. There's
Lars,
Nick, all these guys. But so the credit to all these guys, right? We have not provided this team with the right tools to build compelling missions. They are dealing with an archaic scripting system that dates back to a previous era that we are just about to finish modernizing by replacing to give these guys modern tools and modern approaches. And so going back to markers, the markers are completely managed by game designers and set and removed and displaced and whatever. And that makes for very complicated systems and logic that's not very robust. And so that's why even with a robust marker system, because the markers are managed a bit ad hoc in mission scripts, it makes it really complicated to follow. Like, I remember distinctly when we did the golden ticket event, which that was the whole mission, was like, there's a marker on the ticket, right? Well, now, the holder puts the ticket on his core armor. Now am I tracking the core armor? And then, how does that work? And so, and the mission logic had to manage all these cases. And so now that we've kind of finished the foundation for making the mission system function in server mesh, and we're going to obviously keep iterating on making it robust in this setting and fixing the missions to make sure that they also leverage the system properly, bringing back the missions that are missing, but also improving the ones that are there.
So many systems that have to interact and not mess up.
we have started the engineering work with the new Starscript Foundation to rethink how missions are made from the get-go, to give Elliot, Nick, James, and all these mission designers the right tools so that they're not bogged down with details. If you saw the way they make missions now, it's like involved, right? And we want to make sure that these guys focus on the flow and not on the functionality they have to build, so that programmers can support that content. So when we're talking about this change of focus, we're saying, oh, we're going to deprioritize features. We're also going to prioritize features for content as well, right? So that they can make content that's fun and reliable, so that missions that have been notoriously problematic, or events that have been notoriously problematic, become fun and reliable, right? And that's what we really want to do for the mission part.
All right. That's going to be incredibly important.
Yes.
The mission stuff, especially for this year, this idea that of a narratively driven, content driven year. If we're not providing, 8 to 10 sexy new features every single patch, we're now providing, places to go and things to do instead. Connected to this narrative. Again, we'll talk more about the narrative on next week's ISC. Having that mission system seems like one of the larger. If I were in charge of the priorities, it seems like one of the larger ones. But we actually have some conversation about how you can affect that priority thing at the end of the show. Don't let me forget. Quantum drive.
Yeah. Mission's
Quantum
just
travel.
issue council, right?
Quantum travel.
The bug that keeps on giving.
There's a lot of starting and stopping with quantum travel. A lot of repeating the same actions over and over to get something to work. And a lingering issue of fuel states not syncing between meshes or simply vanishing altogether. Where's my quantum fuel, Benoit?
Okay, so I have to pee. This has been a while. I'm going to stretch my legs. I'm going to watch this on my phone so I don't miss anything. But
a rarer case, but possible.
Do we have our own Bermuda Triangle? What's going on?
Well, yeah, Jens did add some notes here and said, "Oh, if you
I'm gonna go pee.
The triangle, please report."
And maybe get some food. I'll be right back.
So, quantum has been, since the very beginning, we put the first meshing test in place. That was the first thing, right? It's like, quantum stops when I cross a server boundary. That's what happens, right? Still. So, the same symptom has been, again, triggered by multiple, issues.
You find 5 causes, the 6th one shows up.
Correct, exactly. And the latest ones are related to the resource container. So again, I don't want to dive too deep on this, but like entities have classes that define what they are, and they have components on them that define their functionality. So like, if I have a box with a health component, then the health component manages its health, its damage, and its destruction, right? So the entire game is made like this, with components that define things. And so the quantum drive is made up of multiple components, and these components need to deal with the change of authority when we cross a server boundary. And so there's a lot of entities intertwined for quantum drive to function. Fuel, resource container, and quantum drive. And we've been fixing issues with this transition on these entities nonstop since the beginning, because there would be a fix, then it would work for 2 patches, then a change to how we deal with chum points would come in, and then re-break it, right? And so we are in deep regression on a lot of things, right? And so to solve that, we need a lot more focus on validating the issues. It's like, yeah, we fixed this. Okay, let me try transition 1, 2, 3, 4. Like more, I don't want to say more QA, but more QA. We need a lot more QA to validate the fixes.
We're in the home stretch. How you guys doing?
Still
Again,
here. Cool.
If you need to leave, just, Pete, I'll drive the microphones back to you tomorrow. If you guys need to take off. So a little behind the scenes here. I write a doc, and all the things I want to hit, and it's like this, and I make myself little notes about things I want to remember that I hit.
Put some red.
This
stuff.
one just says, prisons. I'm tired. What's going on? It's all I wrote for this. Prisons. I'm tired. What's going on?
So prisons is, and I've learned about this in inquiring a bit about the mission, the prison bug, right, is actually a mission. And it's a very old mission.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a mission module that runs the prison logic. And so for those, I'm sure everybody's familiar, but for those who are not, for some reason, there's a bug that lasted through preview and at the beginning of 4.0, I think, or it was fixed just before that, where if you were a criminal and you got caught and you ended up in Clutcher,
you got what you deserved.
Well, I don't know. But you could try to prison escape, which didn't work because the mission logic that drives the prison escape is tied to this. And so the codes weren't outputting correctly. The logic was basically made for the old mission system. It was not ported. That's part of the refactor. And so it basically depended on when you get to that location to give you a new mission instance for your prison experience, which the new system requires that these modules are persistent and stay there, which accumulate the logic change. And so the logic becomes desynchronized with the state of the mission. So what that did is that you would literally do your time, either use smuggled in adenite from somebody else or mine it, pay your due, and then the elevator will look forward to the front, to the prisoner who's paid us, blah, blah, blah. And then you would press the elevator. Again, elevators are back. Press the elevator to leave, and then it would never detect that the action area that you're leaving is actually triggering, which triggered the, leave prison logic, right? And so the guys have done a hotfix for this in preview, actually at the end of the preview, I think, where they've moved the logic for this leave prison flow to the actual law component that's on your character. And so now we're guaranteed that no matter how weird this flow would get, it's actually going to be reliable.
You just said we guarantee it's going to be reliable. We are 2 hours and 30 minutes into this. No. You just used the phrase, it's guaranteed to be reliable?
Let me rewind. It should be a lot more reliable because your player's always streamed in. So I have a fairly good confidence on this fix, as long as the elevator works.
That's a big caveat, Benoit. As long as the elevator we could sit here for another 2.5 hours and say all kinds of grand things and just be like, sure. as long as the elevator works.
Maybe we'll put some stairs in prison. In fact, there are, but you need the prison escape code to get them.
All right, got like 4 more topics. We're done. Mining.
Yeah.
Sometimes minables are taking up to an hour to fully load in, making them rather impossible to mine.
Yeah. Mining has been actually a dreaded gameplay loop in 4.0. That's one of the reasons when we did the evaluation, whether 3.24 or 4.0 preview, whatever, we did take a look at mining. Like, is mining functional? Is mining in the prospector functional? Is mining in the mole functional? Is mining on the rock functional? Is hand mining functional?
Mining on the rock has never been functional.
It actually was intermittent in the first report, but
I hate the rock.
Hello, I'm back.
We've identified what we think is causing this delay. It's basically the conversion from the render node object, because the mining and harvestables are always in large quantities, right? They could be a very large performance hog, and so they're highly virtualized.
Got some noodles.
There's a conversion from render node to entity that is, for some reason, very slow. And so we're diving into trying to figure out what's going on, but that's what's happening. So that's why it takes time for them to show up properly.
Steamy.
There's nothing wrong with the Rock DS, people, just with the people who like it. All right, I'm officially tired. The views and opinions of Jared Huckabee do not represent those of Cloud Imperium Games, Roberts Space Industries, or its subsidiaries.
Hey, we didn't talk about the mission reduce strict rep gates.
The what?
The reduce strict mission sharing has also been reduced with new strict rep gates.
I just thought that sucked. I didn't think you had an answer for it.
No, I got an answer for it. I went to the people.
You screwed up mission
Make
sharing
some
and the
well.
payouts, and it's miserable. And
Oh, hell yeah. Hey.
Also, there was a bug.
Sometimes that hits. Instant ramen? What kind of instant ramen?
To get the reward for the missions.
Shin ramen's the best. Shin black is so
If the
good.
mission payout was 10K, then everybody would get 10K, everybody participating.
It was amazing.
Well, So,
I loved it when that
so the funny bit is I talked to Rich Tyrer about it, and he's like, I couldn't catch it before they fixed it. That's what I want. And so ultimately, it wasn't exactly what we wanted, but that's the direction we want to go in. We want to encourage you guys to play together. And so having those rewards divided is kind of a counterpoint, right? To get people to play together. Like, why group with you if I'm going to get half the payout?
Just make the missions harder.
And so the thing is, like, the system doesn't work the way we want it to do. So the fix did go through, right? Because it was an easy fix and we had the right persons in place to do it. But that's not where we want this to be. We do
Shin
want
ramen, yeah.
that part.
So good. Try the Shin Black.
We're at 2.5 hours.
Yeah,
And talking about all the bugs that still need to be fixed.
correct.
And the one bug we did fix was one we didn't want to fix.
I know, it's crazy, right? It's a
Yeah,
train.
You know, I challenge you. Whatever you think about the project or me or Benoit or the show, you've never seen an episode of any kind of dev communication like this from any other game developer. Nobody's ever been willing to sit in a chair for 2.5 hours plus and be grilled about all this. So, all right.
Any that do it
Just 2 more or 3 more.
did it because
Three
Star
more
Citizen
subjects,
did
3
it.
more subjects.
We got
They
mine.
pioneered
Three more
this.
sub- yeah.
What's the next one?
Vulkan
Yeah.
and NVIDIA driver issues.
Yeah.
So players who are using Vulkan with the latest NVIDIA drivers are reporting graphical artifacts and crashes.
Yep.
I know some of these crashes were seen from third-party softwares. What was that one that we found? One guy who had like 40 instances of the same crash, and it was all linked to this third-party thing he was using.
Oh, was that Reshade on this?
It wasn't Reshade. It was called something else. I can't remember. Overall, what can you tell us about what's happening with Vulkan and the NVIDIA drivers?
Well, so we're still investigating the cause, but for now, right, we think it's related to a specific driver version from NVIDIA related to the upgrades for the 5090 cards. So we're not quite sure exactly, but it is definitely, when you update your NVIDIA drivers, there are 2 drivers, one for Direct3D and one for Vulkan. It doesn't look like it, but there are 2. And so we think that there's an issue related to the latest version of the driver.
Buldak. I have to try that
for
Buldak one. I've seen it.
specifically. And so
I generally don't do dried ones.
you could downgrade your
But I do
driver,
like when I do it, like making my
probably
own chili oil and own spices.
but we're still investigating.
Sometimes I'll take noodles and just not use the
you
pack.
know, related to this, but other
Like the
we've
mansion
been
ones and then just put in my
investigating
own
other games
spices
are
and
also
stuff.
having the same issue, and so we're
Make like a cream base.
There was one or 2 drivers ago where I saw somebody that had glowing heads. All the character heads were
Yeah.
glowing
Yeah.
and stuff, and they were on Vulkan.
the
Just put egg and milk in it.
We don't think it's a third-party app in this case, though.
Yeah, no, that was just one instance
Yeah.
we were chasing down. I was
Yeah.
watching.
You do need to be careful with third-party apps that inject into the 3D pipeline for multiple reasons. One of them being that the ESC sandbox can catch it, but also because they can cause GPU crashes. So,
All right. The last 2 are about how we make these things better. Issue Council. So, Issue Council has bugs. Issue Council has some issues with it. Players are talking about the effectiveness and usability of the Issue Council. I've seen them expressing frustration with the dupe system and suggesting improvements to the reporting process. There is significant discussion about the difficulty of reporting recurring bugs that have previously been marked as fixed.
Spicy cheese
Why
carbonara.
is
That
this
sounds
happening?
good.
How do we address this going forward?
well,
These are the folks who are
so the
trying
first
to help us.
So you got a picture of it? Can you
first thing I
post it
would
in
say
like in the
is
Pix
that
channel in the Discord?
issue council at CIG
Like
is
the,
of extreme importance,
bag?
right? Even though for players, if you don't feel like your issue is being actioned or that there's retroaction from the team, you can be certain that we have, especially Bayer's group is at the forefront of this, but issue council reports are significantly of high quality in general when they do pass the filters, of course, right? And so we use that data every day
Hell yeah.
to confirm issues. A lot of the issues we have on our famous directors list that I just talked about are not internal JIRAs. They're IC reports, right? And so that process is super key for us. It's a very difficult signal to noise ratio process though, because the level of effort put into
Yeah.
reporting is not necessarily of smooth like the quality range is large. Is what I'm trying to say. Some reports are like game no work. Others are like extremely filled with evidence and those are the ones we want, obviously. We do want to improve the dupe system. So I've seen several backers on the ETF and elsewhere that are very active at calling out dupes. And for now, I think that their voice are
game no work
modeled by people saying, "Oh, I can reproduce," right? Instead of saying, "Oh, I confirmed this dupe," right? So we're actively looking at how we can improve that flow, because that's a major, like when we identify a duplicate, it's a major win, right? So when you contribute to the issue council, a new report is, depending on the issue, right, takes a lot of effort for it to reach us, because you need to get reproductions on it. Reproducing another issue is a great contribution, but identifying a dupe is probably the best contribution you can make, because that helps us a lot. And for now, that's not leveled enough. So we want to change the way the issue council works to make that a lot more.
Put a little hot sauce on this?
For sure.
Nice.
But the prioritization and the upvotes have historically been used, but in this new process, we're also trying to lean into this a lot more. And so the please fix hammer button, right, to upvote an issue, we're going to try to give it a voice and actually make some of the internal discussions we're having, I can share some thoughts if you guys are interested, are even to have community identified issues directly in the director's list, like make the community a director in this list.
There's also some amount of things being marked dupes that aren't dupes.
Sure.
It's people are moving fast. Some people think they've seen that before or whatever, or they think this is the same thing as that, but it's not. Right. It's just in the same ballpark or whatever. So there's also this thing that happens where things are getting marked duped and they're not duped, and I don't know how you battle that.
No, well, that's a balancing act, right? That's why, for now, I feel like the dupe markers are kind of more experienced, testers.
Oh, they give a reward for dupe? Oh, yeah, that's a problem, because then people are just going to go in and mark things as dupe when they're not even.
Happen typically
without paying
when
attention.
We actually intake a bug, right, from the community, and we're going to try to repro it internally. That's where we're like, oh, it's been marked as a dupe, but it actually is a new symptom, or it's the same case as another one or not.
Do you think there's some amount of, is it possible that there's some amount of semi-malicious intent there? People who are farming dupes or using bots or whatever, because as I know there are incentives for participation in the IC and stuff like this.
Right.
Obviously we incentivize the use of the issue council because it was incredibly important to our to the way that we make the game. But any incentive tends to be weaponized in some way, shape, or form. So have you seen evidence of this? Is this?
No, not so far, right? Not so far as to say like, oh yeah, there's this going on, right? The worst things that we've seen so far on IC would be things like brigading a specific issue, right? And that's why also we've been kind of careful with rewards to the issue council. It's not because we don't want to reward players that are doing stuff there. Like we are doing some of them, but we're always trying to stay asynchronous so that you can't go, oh, they're going to reward for this, so I'm going to go and create reports, or I'm going to create dupes, or I'm going to create whatever.
You'll get achievement hunters just going in there.
Obviously, you're the person who would know, and it's not that I don't believe it. What I've seen, and what I'm reading in chat right now, would you commit to maybe taking a look at that and maybe seeing if maybe it is being manipulated?
Yeah, I can absolutely look at it.
Okay.
Especially if there's a sense that that's happening. Yeah.
Yes, Apple Tango. It's the best part about living in the UK.
Never had that.
Obviously, we're not covering every bug, every topic in the thing. It's,
well,
we've done more than
more hours.
We've done more than any human being in the world. I've never seen this look on David's face before. Like David was a kind and jovial spirit,
and now he's like,
and now he's like, like I'm gonna pay for this.
Yeah.
The error codes themselves, famously.
Yeah.
30K could mean 40 different things, 50 different things, 60 things. We have made progress. We've absolutely made progress. But even that 630 is that's not just one thing. There's multiple causes for even the 630 and stuff like this.
Of course.
Are there any initiatives in place to help this drive down? Anybody who's worked in IT, I worked in IT for 20 years before I came here. Everybody knows that the worst errors are the ones where you can't rely on the error code, and you're never going to get 100%. You're never going to get to a point where every single error code is just going to spell out to you everything that's exactly wrong with it. But I feel like there's still improvements we can make.
Absolutely.
We're not at that point where there's nothing more we can do.
No.
So what are we doing about it?
Well, so on error codes, the error codes are gonna go and merge pop-ups into that, right? Because I mean, the error pop-ups date back to the very original start of the project. Like nobody's touched these things in
We posted perfect.
forever, right?
Because I want to look at that.
So the nicely misaligned cancel button is my favorite pet peeve, right?
Why haven't we fixed that button?
Well, we're fixing it. So we actually have a CL right now.
Potentially
to
buy
change
this
all
one.
these pop-ups to make them at least readable.
I don't know if I've ever seen that
and
one.
aligned, right? So we start with that, but
No, you start with the elevators, then you fix that button.
so the error codes themselves, right? So there's already good categorization for issues. So every kind of like 30,000 errors, 40,000 errors, 60,000 errors are all like families of errors. Unfortunately, over the years, we've added more systems, we've grown the infrastructure, and there's a lot more causes for exit or fatal errors than there are actual code assigned in those categories. And so what we're doing now is kind of seeing if we can surface more information. 30,009 is typically related to your character during login, but there's a million causes that could cause a 30,009, whether it's that shard can't unstall your player, or your player is missing a component, or, and we're trying to surface more of that so that there's more of these cases so that you can, as a player, know a bit more about it. Also, the wording for some of those errors are being revamped because, they're not always very clear. And we're trying to...
I want to do that shocked bird gif right now. Continue.
Correct. And so adding more details and more granularity to our error codes, changing the wording, making sure they're more effective at representing what they are, and eliminating a bunch of there's
Gotta clip that one.
Couple cases where we fall to a default error code for kind of unknown conditions. That's what we need to flesh out, is like the unknown. What is the unknown condition? Try to surface more error codes from the other systems to get more of that information in place. So we need more clarity on that side, so that players like, oh, I got a 19K error. What does that mean, right? Like I go in Spectrum a lot in the SC testing chat, and I see players going like, what's to fix the 19K errors, right? And a 19K raw error is like your client can't talk to the backend service at all. So it's typically a client-side problem, firewall, machine connectivity, something like that. But the error message itself is really unclear, right? It's like, oh, we failed to log you in, right? Well, what can I do as a player to fix that, right? So we're trying to get a lot more clarity on these error messages. That's part of like the improvements of these things that have been plaguing us forever. These goddamn pop-ups are one of them.
I've had it to hear with these goddamn pop-ups.
Hey, you want a funny one? Like here's a funny one on these pop-ups, right? Because we're all complaining about them, but we lost those pop-ups during the 4.0 preview. Right? Mm-hmm. Everybody was having a black screen. Everybody was complaining about a black screen. It's like, I get a black screen, right? Well, what actually happened is that someone that I shall not name, right? But a developer fixed another issue where when you die, we need to move the camera and move your character, and it looks like crap, right? So we didn't want to see that. And so the way to solve that was to fade out the game UI, including the pop-ups. That was it, And so in this case, it was if you got disconnected, then the pop-up would go fade to black. Great. Serenity now.
All right. So we're here.
Yeah.
We're at the end.
This was raw game dev.
Going forward, I touched on this about halfway through, but going forward, with a focus on stability, performance, and content this year, This means less time available, fewer resources spent, and no patches dedicated specifically to new features. It's not that new features won't come out or they're not being worked on the background, just that instead of 10 or 15 people working on them, there's now a much smaller group, and the time, we're not going to time lock it into a specific thing. We're going to make good on the promise we made back with 3.0, quite honestly. Star Citizen's been this heavily feature-driven.
I found Trusted MLC on Book Outlet. It's online bargain bookstore, probably Canadian. Candying. Oh!
You know, a patch with a
How
bunch
much is
of
like
features comes out that
delivery
brings
and
people
stuff?
back. They come in, they see the new features.
We have an Asian supermarket near us, so we can probably get it.
It's this cycle that's existed for so many years, and we're stopping that now. And we're focusing on fixes and quality of life. And all no more. It's just from a marketing standpoint. These trailers where it's like this feature, this feature, this feature, this feature, this feature. Like those days are not here this year. That's not what this year's going to be about. So
Good.
this thing's I'm excited and I'm scared at the same moment. If I'm being completely honest, because we've never seen what a content-driven, stability-focused year of Star Citizen is like. It's going to be different. And like anything else with Star Citizen, it's going to change and evolve over the year, because somebody will have an idea in April and we'll tweak this, and somebody will have another idea in June and we'll tweak this. So all we know is that it's going to be different. It's going to be different, hopefully better, but it's not what we've done before. Do you think this is scary? And more importantly, why is now the time for the change?
Well, I think first of all, it is very scary,
Did it die?
right? Because it's a change of how we've been doing things forever, right? Which is like a focus on.
Very fun. Love this.
And going like everybody's hitting this problem, like, and
What's going on? Come on.
hey, we should fix this, right? It's like, no, we're fixing this. Like every director in the company is gonna be on top duty for this, right? But what's
What the fuck is going on, bro?
and that's the part that's scary. That if we do achieve,
What the fuck, dude?
we're gonna need features as well, right? And
When
so
we get to that point, then everybody's going to try. It's like, there's nothing to do now. It's
the sushi restaurant.
Why is this happening? Come on.
But it just has to be done. And the reason why it's time to do this is because like Chris said it in his letter, that's the part that resonated the most to me, is like, we all acknowledge that if the game that we have now functioned the way it's supposed to, it'd be a great game, right? And that's what we want. We want a great game, and we can build on, and pass a road to get us out of alpha, right? And that's why it's time now. That's why we're committing to this.
And if there's one thing you want, we've obviously spent a lot of time. We've obviously spent a lot of time here. Sorry, Pete, took my hand off my face. Audio guys, just like, stop talking into you. I'm tired. If there's one thing you want to make sure people take away from this today, the letter in December, all of the, admittedly, a lot of talk. The proof will be in the pudding over the next year.
Yeah.
What do you want people to take away from today?
I mean, I think I want players to know that we know about the state of the game. We're not oblivious to it. We really care about making the work of our teams shine, and we're gonna work our ass off to get this game.
What is happening?
Solid, and to be the game that we want to be. I think it's.
Why? Just fucking play.
We do that change.
It's a fucking video.
Wolf 655 in chat says pure.
My computer can handle this.
All right.
Trying, guys. Benoit, thank you so much for taking your time to be here. Folks don't know this. There was the entire CTG team is here for the annual summit. There was a big celebratory party for launching server meshing and finally getting out the door. It's happening right now. It started right as we went on the air, and Benoit, chose to be here to do this instead. He chose to be here for 3 hours and face the tough conversations. Yeah, we're just about 3 hours. Thank you so much. I got to thank David, Pete, and Lauren for sticking it out. This is not what I sold them when I said, come help me make the show. The community team and the player experience team are going to put up a thread on Spectrum where they discuss many of the pressing
18's not bad.
We talked about today, and they're going to have you vote on which ones you think are most pressing. Obviously, we have our own internal prioritization. We've talked about the directors list and stuff like this, but it was an initiative that was really important to the top leadership. We wanted to know what you guys are thinking and what you guys are doing. So look for that. I'm not sure when it's going to go live or in what subsection. Just check it out on Spectrum. It'll be up. Thank you again, and
hopefully I don't get flamed by the game devs for my details. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see if I've still got a job back when I go to the thing. Let's see. I want to say one more thing before we go. This is give me a minute here. This is going to be a real change of topic here. In November, for IAE show episode 3, we released this puppet song that John Crew and I did. That I wrote, and this thing that I've been dreaming about. Kat, our fantastic creative director for the project, made it all happen, and stuff like this. And it was one of the things I was most proud of. And about an hour after that episode went live, on November 28th, I called my dad. Those who have followed the project for a while know my dad is a Star Citizen. Ever since that random day in 2017 when I got a text message, hey son, when is the Cutlass Red, get this or whatever, I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? My family is not supposed to be involved in this thing. He's been a Star Citizen for a long time. I called him up because it was one of those things that I knew would make him proud and it would make him laugh. And it did. He answered the phone in a hospital bed. There was nothing to worry about at that point. He just felt a little weird. At his age, they would take precautions. And he assured me everything was fine. We watched it together and we laughed and everything was great. And we said goodbye and we talked about how excited we were to see each other at Christmas. About an hour later, he had the first of a series of heart attacks. And on December 9th, after a week of convincing me that I did not need to rush out there because he was going to be okay and everything, he passed away. And when I went back, and I'm doing all the things that a son has to do when their father passes away, I'm going through his computer, I'm going through his records and making sure everything. What I discovered was I knew he liked Star Citizen. I did not understand the breadth of involvement that he had. He retired. He retired from the Army and from the Corrections Service and from Homeland Security and all the things he did over his life, and he became a professional Star Citizen. His Discord was full of over 100 unread DMs, and as I went through them, they were all talking about Star Citizen. He was in at least 14 different Star Citizen Discords. He was in a number of organizations, and he was an officer in several. And he was able to do that because of you. I didn't talk about Star Citizen with him. We had a standing rule that when I came home for holidays and whatnot, he was not allowed to ask me a question about Star Citizen until after dinner was done and the plates were done. It was really important to me to have one aspect of my life that was not completely consumed with Star Citizen, and I made that my family. His engagement with this project was all because of you. There were Star Citizens at his funeral. There were Star Citizens at his wake. And not the worst Star Citizen I've ever been to. But what I came away with is just a profound appreciation for many of your roles in his life. His retirement was playing with you. So many of you. Names I see in the chat, I saw in the chat today, which is why I'm saying this now. So, from me, personally, thank you for being there for him when I wasn't able to be. And you made the last 6, 7 years of his life some of his happiest. So, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you for watching. Thank you for playing Star Citizen. Thank you for being the community that you've always been, even the ones that call out total BS. You're all appreciated. That's it for this show. Tune in next week. There's a BTS episode and an ISC episode about something. I can't even think about what they are anymore. Thank you. And we'll see you next week, everybody. Take care. Bye.
Thanks.
I don't know how he got through that without cracking. Yeah, 07's in chat. No, gaming does not even just this game, just gaming in general. You know, it's something that this allows people around the world to.
He just straight teleported.
That's stupid.
He just teleported, bro.
Oh, wow.
CIG. What up, guys?
That's a big raid.
Woo! Let's go! How y'all doing?
What was I gonna say? Yeah, just in general, as you connect with people around the world.
I don't even know what there's too many names. 3,351 raiders from Star Citizen. What is up, guys? How you guys doing?
Yeah, they
welcome to the Astrodome.
They didn't get the Cutlass Red out in time. Oh no. Should have released it sooner.
Welcome to the Astrodome, everybody.
The medevac.
Thanks for the follows. Resonate.
Well, that's it.
See you popping up.
Thank you guys for chilling. I got a lot of work to do. Didn't expect that to go so late.
2 hours.
I gotta get tomorrow's stream set up. Well, hopefully that shouldn't take too long.
We're out here in the Saber,
And
low flying and protecting the cargo ships.
we'll see you tomorrow for Talladega. I'm doing the Talladega stream, team stream, from 1 o'clock till whenever it ends. You know, if they go far in the bracket, potentially like upwards of 5 o'clock, but it could end sooner. So tonight I'll be casting, I think, Valorant on the college's broadcast. So Condor's Esports. If you go over there, that's where you'll find that cast. Yeah. So cast tonight, cast tomorrow, and then I'll be casting again. No, it's Rocket League tonight. It's actually Rocket League. So our Rocket League team is playing tonight for the Condors. So Rocket League cast tonight, Rocket League cast tomorrow. And then I think it's MLB The Show on Friday night. I don't know anything about baseball, so that'll be interesting. So thank you guys for chilling today. We're going to send her off.
You guys ready for it?
Much love, and hope to see you tonight in the Condors thing. If not, I'll see you tomorrow for the Rocket League cast. Thanks for watching. Until next time, keep gaming hard.
Your hanger, well, yeah, the hangers are broken everywhere. That's okay though.
The NPCs are flying around, so it looks like they're.
Give you guys another water buzz by for the heck of it, huh?